It all kicks off under a sky completely blanketed in endlessly falling snow. Vice Director Shim De-young calmly takes in the icy landscape. Just then, an armed guard radios in that his identity has been successfully verified. The heavy gates of a military base begin to slowly creak open. This isolated, ice-covered place is the dangerous conflict zone in North Chiorwan. Checking his phone, De-young confirms the coordinates are pointing to the exact spot he needs to go. Then he simply slips the device into his coat pocket. An intense blue energy starts to glow around his boots. With a powerful push, he shoots off at high speed, since the Awakened were born with abilities far beyond normal humans after a certain incident. That event, known as Daybreak, was burned into everyone's memory, as insane monsters started pouring out of dungeons that just popped up out of nowhere. Because of that, humanity was nearly wiped off the map. However, the Awakened scattered across the globe helped restore civilization, until the Great War, which lasted 20 years, was drawing to a close. Back then, one of the 5 great heroes appeared, using deadly rays to save the homeland. He successfully defended the city and ended the war once and for all, even ending up in the history books. 29 years after that historic battle, De-young is racing through the snow to find that very hero, who chose to live hidden from the world. As he pushes forward, the vice director thinks it's nuts that an 80-year-old man would live alone in such a remote place, figuring he must be some kind of mountain hermit. With a precise leap, he lands hard, kicking up a cloud of snow. But something immediately grabs his attention. Startled, he skids backward, trying to get some distance from the danger. A bizarre giant creature stares him down, leaving him completely in shock. The beast is a moss duck, a weird mix of a goofy head and the aggressive body of an ostrich. De-young tenses up, knowing these things can run up to 100 kilometers an hour. What's even worse is that these monsters never live alone. Knowing it's an A-rank disaster creature, he gathers energy in his hands, wondering if he'll have to fight the whole flock. The beasts charge forward, letting out a deafening screech. Breaking out in a cold sweat, the guy realizes he doesn't stand a chance of winning this fight. Without a second thought, he spins around and bolts, questioning how anyone could survive living in an area like this. Looking back, he sees something else that freezes his blood on the spot. A giant flaming thunderbird appears, infamous monster known for tearing its prey apart, not even leaving bones behind to tell the tale. Running for his life, De-young starts to panic, wondering why A-rank disasters are just wandering around here like neighborhood pigeons. Just then, he spots a small wooden cabin up ahead. Seizing the opportunity, he leaps toward the roof, determined to hide inside. But the immense thunderbird dives straight for him out of the sky. The beast attacks with its brutal flames, forcing De-young to shield himself with his arms to keep from getting roasted. With its giant beak inches from his face, he's sure this is the end. Suddenly, a voice tells the beast to drop its prey, and the deadly creature turns into a small, harmless bird. Confused, the vice director looks toward the human voice that just saved his skin. A broom lightly smacks the little bird, shooing it away and causing the guy to tumble off the roof. He hits the ground with a thud, sending up a huge cloud of snow as his back slams into it. Still on the ground, he looks up in awe as the monster peacefully flies away, under someone's command. A man holding a broom, wearing nothing but shorts and flip-flops in the middle of the ice, asks if he's the new vice director. With a carefree expression, the resident tells the other monsters to scram too. The enormous moss ducks, which were ready to devour the visitor moments ago, now just stare at him, quiet and calm. The man gives a slight wave of his hand, dismissing all the beasts. Obediently, the ducks turn and march away in a single file line through the snow. De-young is stunned, watching the creatures march in military formation, and turns around, not understanding a thing. Still on the ground, he cautiously asks who the man in front of him is. The resident introduces himself as Choi Kang-ho as casually as can be. Turning his back to go inside the cabin, the host invites the guy in for a bite to eat, noting that the journey since dawn must have taken its toll. The vice director freezes, realizing this young man is actually the 80-year-old war hero. He remembers the legend of the King of Beasts, the relentless warrior who brought peace by winning the Great War. Snapping out of it, De-young scrambles after the hero, begging to come inside with him. The small wooden cabin stands alone in the middle of the snowy landscape, radiating tranquility. Inside, the visitor notices the place is so simple it almost looks empty. Staring at the host by the stove, he can't get over the youthful appearance of someone who should be an old man. Using his fire powers to cook lunch, Kang-ho notices the guy's surprise and asks if his new face is the problem. The hero listens as he's told that his old buddies from 20 years ago are now old men running guilds or holding powerful positions in the country. Being brutally honest, Kang-ho admits he has no idea why he's stuck in a body that just won't age. Cracking a massive egg with one hand, he remarks on how the Thunderbird chick is a cutie. Young forces a nervous smile, trying to wrap his head around how absurd this all is while agreeing with the veteran. In his thoughts, the young man recalls that the ability to tame any beast is no legend, remembering how the senior stopped an army by fighting alongside powerful monsters. Excited, he comments on the impressive fact that the veteran is still raising these creatures in retirement. The plate with the huge fried egg is slammed down on the table, grabbing everyone's attention. The hero sits down and cuts him off, telling him to just eat and get to the real reason for his visit, leaving the kid totally red-faced from the shutdown. Regaining his composure, the guy explains that a serious problem has recently come up. He projects a hologram showing new types of monsters, explaining that their aggression has spiked so much that the hero's presence has become vital. The senior asks for more details, and hours after that tense conversation, the visitor leaves, declaring it was an honor to meet him. Giving a respectful bow in the snow, the young man apologizes for all the trouble he caused with his disastrous arrival. However, before leaving, he musters the courage to ask the real reason the veteran lives so isolated in the middle of nowhere. Leaning against the door with his arms crossed, Kang-ho reveals that he's patiently waiting for something very important. Suddenly, the vice director is grabbed from behind with no chance to react. A massive saber-toothed tiger lifts the guy up by his coat, leaving him in a complete panic over the S-rank monster. The hero waves nonchalantly, warning that the forest gets dangerous at night, and assuring him that his pet cat will give him a safe ride back. Speeding through the snow, the giant tiger disappears into the distance as the visitor screams for help. Enjoying the newfound peace and quiet, Kang-ho heads back inside, stretching his arms to relax after the long day. Enjoying the calm of the day, Kang-ho sits on a small stool outside the cabin and watches his little pets eat their feed. A moment later, he grabs the broom and starts sweeping the front of the house, noting that the snow just doesn't seem to quit. With firm movements, the hero tosses the excess snow aside, trying to clear a path in his yard. Just then, he hears heavy breathing behind him and calls out to his big fluffy pet. The enormous snow lion looks like it's been completely wronged somehow. Meanwhile, back at the military base, Young finally arrives, sliding down an icy slope, completely exhausted from the trip. One of the soldiers asks if the ride back was safe, but the vice director is still too traumatized, trying to process if he was really carried back in the mouth of a giant tiger. Laughing at the situation, the guard comments that it's totally normal for everyone to be in shock the first time they visit. The other soldier calmly agrees, stating that everyone at the base is already used to the veteran's bizarre antics. Back at the cabin, Kang-ho puts on his coat and grabs his patrol gear. Without wasting a moment, he climbs onto the soft back of his immense pet. With everything ready, the resident announces they need to head out for another patrol of the area today. With a powerful leap, the beast dashes forward, cutting through the frozen landscape. They tear through the cold wind at high speed, which makes the man remember the time just after the great incident 49 years ago. Back then, because of the out-of-control invasion, that entire region transformed into an ecosystem dominated by bizarre creatures. It was right there on that ice-covered field that it all began. Walking beside his pet, the hero recalls that this was where he first met Yahello. He notices that something in the environment has finally grown a little after all this waiting. His gaze focuses on a large, mysterious egg glowing with blue hues in the middle of the snow. The sight brings back memories of the great battle from 29 years ago, when hordes of terrifying monsters appeared out of nowhere. The invasion was so massive that the beasts completely destroyed the streets and swallowed the entire city. Even surrounded by furious creatures, a younger Kang-ho remained completely unshakable. The enemy army advanced like an unstoppable tide, ready to decimate the humans. But the hero focused his energy, creating intense electric sparks around his body. With an explosive move, he unleashed a devastating wave of power that swept away the monsters in front of him. Immediately after, the young man activated the sensory link with his contract beast. Gigantic paws of pure energy descended from the heavens, crushing the remaining beasts with ease. A majestic giant white fox materialized behind him, ready to join the carnage. Feeling the power flowing intensely through his hands, the warrior prepared for the final attack. Taking a firm step forward, he gave the order for his partner to advance and destroy everything. Fighting side by side to end the Inchen War, he and his faithful silver-furred companion faced the chaos together. However, the cost of victory was incredibly high, ending with the fox collapsed and gravely wounded amidst the wreckage of the burning city. The creature's breathing was agonizingly faint as its strength faded. Kneeling beside her, Kang Ho stroked her face, apologizing and thanking her for everything she had endured in that war. With no strength left, the great beast slowly closed her eyes and began to dissolve into pure energy. The hero was left alone in the darkness, watching his companion disappear completely into the air. The loss left the young man with an empty gaze, utterly devastated by guilt. In the spot where the beast vanished, only a small, shimmering crystal was left behind in the snow. Back in the present, the veteran continues to sit and watch that same untouched crystal, explaining in his thoughts that he has spent all these years waiting in the same ageless body. With a nostalgic look, he tells the stone that midnight is about to ring in the new year, silently hoping for it to awaken. Checking the time on his watch, he notices small ice fairies flying around him. Gently, the hero smiles and asks if the little fairies came out of the nearby portal to celebrate the new year. The watch's timer ticks forward, marking the final seconds of the year. The giant lion and its owner watch the blue lights dance across the snowy sky, creating a peaceful atmosphere. With only 2 seconds left, the countdown nears its end. Suddenly, the crystal reacts, emitting a blinding light and beginning to crack. The hero is startled by the sudden change, focusing all his attention on the stone. Exactly as the clock strikes midnight, the energy explodes, shattering the shell. The egg shatters, scattering brilliant fragments everywhere in an intense flash of light. The impact of the light is so strong it knocks Kang Ho back onto the ground. He is completely amazed, realizing the miracle happened exactly 30 years after the war ended. From the midst of the magical dust, a small white fox cub emerges, identical to his former partner. Still stunned by the cuteness, the veteran lets out a shy hello to the tiny creature in that same snowy field. The scene reminds the hero of 49 years ago, when he was still serving in the army in the same region. Back then, he was running for his life through the snow, trying to escape a brutal horde of beasts. Exhausted and out of options, the young soldier had stopped in his tracks, bracing for the worst possible outcome. But he was frozen in shock when he witnessed something impossible descending from the sky. The original majestic white fox had slaughtered the beasts and saved his life, in an encounter that felt like destiny. Now in the present, the veteran smiles in relief, realizing that his friend's heir has finally awakened in the very same place. The little fox cub awkwardly shakes its fur, trying to get the snow off. Without a hint of fear, the tiny creature gives an excited leap straight into his lap. She nuzzles his cheek affectionately, making him ask if this is her way of saying hi. Melting at the sight, the hero gently hugs the cub and warmly returns the greeting. As the sun rises on the horizon, he enjoys the peaceful moment, confirming that she is the spitting image of her mother. However, the strange flapping of wings in the sky cuts through the reunion and grabs his attention. Activating his vision skill, the veteran scans the flock of bat-winged monsters to check their stats. Intrigued by the creature's low stats, he realizes this is a new type of monster that hasn't shown its face since the Great War. The man pulls out the report left by the vice director, remembering the warning about the bizarre aggression of these new beasts. He starts connecting the dots, finding it highly suspicious that the cub was born at the exact moment these anomalies started reappearing. The large lion grumbles for attention, and its owner gives it a reassuring pat while holding the little fox. Far from there, in Seoul's Gangnam district, heavy snow continues to fall over the illuminated city. The imposing mercenary tower, the headquarters of one of Korea's 3 largest guilds, stands out in the cold night. Suddenly, a monstrous creature shatters the glass windows, brutally invading a high floor. One of the employees gulps as the beast lands right in front of him, wrecking the office. Elsewhere, armed security guards desperately shout into their radios, reporting a massive problem on the roof. Amidst the chaos in the building, one of the security guards screams for immediate backup. But his partner cuts him off, reminding him of Clause 3 in the emergency manual. Any young man who shows up riding a saber-toothed tiger is a friend of the president and should be treated with kindness and escorted inside. Realizing they've just received a VIP visitor, the guard orders the rooftop gate to be opened at once. An alarm blares as the great snow lion appears in the doorway, terrifying the employee, who confirms that the guild's scary legend was no exaggeration. With the situation calmer, Kang Ho tells his pet to wait there quietly until he gets back. After getting a bark of confirmation from the beast, the man waves a casual greeting to someone. Walking down the dark hallway, the hero asks if his old friend is in. Behind the monitors, the staff are shocked to see the visitor, commenting on how he still has the same youthful appearance as before. Just then, the veteran hears a loud noise approaching and finds it strange how the guy's footsteps get heavier with age. The door flies open violently, and the Grandmaster of the Mercenary Guild, known as the King of Iron Fists, shouts Kang Ho's name, completely stunned. I am Chialbi gives his friend a tight bear hug, celebrating that he finally showed up after all this time. Excited, the burly veteran declares they're in their 80s now and need to drink heavily to catch up, only to be told he should start worrying more about his own health. Suddenly, the little white fox cub wakes up and pokes its head out of the man's coat pocket. The guild master notices the ball of fur, finding its face very familiar. Utterly shocked, he asks if by any chance that cub was born from the egg of the MC's old battle companion. Confirming his suspicion, the man introduces the baby as Sialwa's daughter and says he decided to name her Siale. The big guy gets right up in the little creature's face, realizing his friend only came all this way to show off this cutie. Thrilled with the news, the master declares this is yet another reason to celebrate hard tonight, making the MC sigh and accept the offer. Now sitting with their drinks, Kang Ho gets straight to the point and reveals he actually came because he has something serious to ask. He shows a picture of a bizarre monster on his phone, explaining that someone from the disaster management department dropped it off at his house. The guild leader recognizes the image instantly, saying one of his elite A-class mercenaries recently went missing in the southern conflict zone. Unable to fully explain the situation, the veteran warns that something is definitely very wrong, as these new types of monsters are appearing more and more frequently. With a heavy expression, the King of Iron Fists reveals he noticed a disturbing detail about some of these creatures. They all exuded a strong demonic energy. Taking a sip of his drink, the hero becomes thoughtful upon hearing about the return of this dark force. Chialbi recalls that during the Great Daybreak War, all monsters possessed this same corruption, which pushed their instincts to the extreme and resulted in unnatural brutality. And at the center of all that chaos back then, there was a creature that forced this evil upon the monsters, a true demon, which raises the worst-case scenario that these things might be coming back. Slamming his glass of ice on the table to break the tense mood, the big guy quickly changes the subject. He starts bragging that he's currently ranked 6th in Korea, which is great for an old man, only to get hit with a jab from his friend that with inflation on the rise, the only thing going down is his rank. Laughing at the dig, the master pushes an energy meter toward the MC, asking him to measure his magic power since he's there, using his own 74,000 points as a baseline. With no interest whatsoever, Kang Ho refuses the game, saying it's too much work and he doesn't even know how to use the machine. However, the guild leader blackmails him, warning that if he doesn't satisfy his curiosity, the little fox won't get a birthday present. Accepting defeat, the MC shoves his arm into the glowing device and asks if he just has to pour his magic into it. Instantly, intense electrical discharges start crackling all over his body, showing an absurd release of power. The system identifies the user by the codename Beastmaster and calculates a combat power exceeding 120,000. Based on these insane numbers, the machine declares his estimated rank as first place, both nationally and globally. The cigar drops from Chialbi's mouth as he panics, screaming to know what kind of crazy training his friend has been doing in that remote wasteland. Scratching the back of his neck awkwardly, the hero replies that he's spent all this time just taking care of his farm and raising his pets. Utterly defeated, the old man leans back in his chair and mutters that retiring to the countryside is apparently the real secret to success. The next day, back at the dungeon orchard near his house, the MC wonders if his friend has recovered from last night's hangover yet. This place is special because it's full of earth fairies and low-level monsters that help the plants grow, making it the perfect environment for a beast master to cultivate magic fruits. Admiring a giant, glowing magic stone in his hands, the hero comments that he's never seen a gem this big and that he received it as a gift from one of the fairies. Carefully, he places the crystal in the middle of the snow and pats the ground to secure it. As soon as the item touches the earth, a massive pillar of blue energy erupts upward, sweeping through the area. The nourishing power of the magic is so insane that even the veteran is impressed with the immediate effect on the ecosystem. In the surrounding trees, the magic fruits begin to swell and glow intensely. The fairies and monster helpers celebrate wildly, doubling in size in the blink of an eye due to the energy explosion. Enjoying the shower of magic falling from the sky, the little fox cub leaps from side to side, having the time of her life. Curious, the man activates his beast eye to check her stats, revealing that her rarity is off the charts, but her attack and defense power are minimal. Analyzing the floating screen, he notes that she's a subspecies, and finds it bizarre that the system is showing question marks for her abilities for the first time. In the middle of her fun, the little creature stops abruptly and perks up her ears. Completely focused, the baby concentrates on something far off in the forest. On a sudden impulse, she dashes off at high speed, kicking up snow and leaving her owner behind. Startled by the unexpected escape, Kang-ho shouts the cub's name, trying to call her back. But the little fox completely ignores him, running like a bolt of lightning between the frozen tree trunks. Standing in the middle of the orchard, the hero looks at the paw prints in the snow, not understanding why she's in such a hurry. He silently wonders if his new partner managed to sniff out some danger nearby. Realizing he can't leave the little one alone, the veteran decides to go after her at once. He concentrates his electric energy in his legs and stomps on the snowy ground, creating an impact crater. With a powerful start, the MC tears through the forest, running in the same direction as the cub. Keeping pace, the master chases the small white trail through the trees. The little fox runs, panting, completely focused on her mysterious goal. With great agility, she uses the icy slopes to gain momentum and even more distance. Seeing the baby's energy, the MC smiles, impressed by the speed she can reach despite being so young. Reaching the edge of a cliff, the tiny creature leaps without hesitation to the lower part of the region. As soon as the hero reaches the top of the hill, he's completely surprised by the scene below. A small group of terrified fairies is cornered by a horde of shadowy, sharp-toothed monsters. Taking charge of the situation, little Ciale lands right in the middle of the conflict, acting as a shield between the victims and the creatures. Without a hint of fear, the baby tries to let out a threatening roar to scare off the enemies. However, the grotesque monsters roar back in unison, showing they're not the least bit intimidated by the ball of fur. Analyzing the chaos from above, Kang-ho notices that those earth fairies have a unique look, and is intrigued that his pet ran all the way here just to play bodyguard. Suddenly, a gigantic shadow rises behind the little fox, catching everyone by surprise. Keeping his cool, the veteran assesses that even for a fox, it's still too early for the baby to face such a high-level disaster threat on her own. The system immediately classifies the immense armored serpent as a Titanoboa, highlighting its dangerous max-level attributes. Furiously, the monstrous snake strikes, lunging aggressively at the cub. Calmly raising 2 fingers, Kang-ho announces that playtime is over. The gigantic snake gulps and instinctively recoils upon feeling the man's innate predator's instinct skill activate. The overwhelming shock of energy paralyses the other small monsters in the horde with pure terror. Flexing his fingers, the beast master concentrates a blue aura in his hands. He then easily grabs the serpent by the snout, warning that if he catches the creature lurking around here again, he'll turn it into a canned beverage. The small earth fairy's eyes widen in awe at the display of domination. Turning to the smaller monsters, the MC demands an answer, and the group desperately nods in agreement before he concludes that everything is just fine. Meanwhile, the fairies continue to watch the whole situation with a mix of surprise and relief. Seizing the opportunity, the horde of smaller creatures flees through the snow as fast as they can. Along the way, strange dark birds with red crests watch the chaos, exuding a shadowy aura. The little fox senses the menacing presence instantly and goes on high alert. The veteran recognizes the heavy demonic energy, as the system classifies the species as a bird of prey with extremely low attributes. Without a second thought, Ciale concentrates her light energy and shoots toward the enemies. She passes like a white blur, knocking down the demonic chickens with extreme speed. Watching from a distance, the hero reflects on the appearance of these new types of creatures infected with corruption. Looking up, the man notices a newly formed portal in the sky and understands why the whole area is infested with that bad energy. With that, he leaps from the cliff with the baby fox to investigate the site. Landing firmly in the snow, the MC deduces that the portal's presence might indicate a demon is nearby. But he's soon shocked to read on the system that the little one has just acquired a charged skill, finding her rapid growth bizarre. Up ahead, the corrupted birds regroup, ready to continue their rampage through the forest. Excited by the danger, the cub looks back with a pleading face, waiting for permission to go play with the monsters. The little creature's shining eyes bring back direct memories of his old battle partner. The veteran recalls the days he trained hard alongside the great Cialwa in the past. But the memory ends with the sad image of his old friend, exhausted and wounded after so many battles around the world. Because of this weight, he admits his greatest wish was to raise the new baby as just a normal kid, free from danger. However, seeing the cub's natural excitement, he recognizes that preventing her from ever fighting would be purely selfish on his part. Accepting her destiny, he gently extends his hand toward his companion, ready to form a definitive bond. Gently stroking her head, he promises to do everything he can to make her the strongest beast in the world. At that moment, a massive column of blue light erupts, sweeping across the region around them. The little fox's eyes widen in surprise as she sees a shimmering magic circle form right in front of her. A brilliant energy envelops the MC's hand, taking the form of a celestial ring of power. The system announces that the ring has been successfully established, forging an unbreakable bond between master and beast. Smiling calmly, Kang Ho says he'll only share a little of his magic since she's still too young to handle it all. Overflowing with blue power, the little creature receives the order to advance and fight until she's tired. In the sky, the flock of corrupted birds dives aggressively toward their new target. One of the demonic roosters opens its beak, letting out a piercing screech in an attempt to intimidate its prey. The little one's eye glows intensely as she focuses completely on the enemy's trajectory. Using the sensory link, the veteran shares the same senses and physical abilities as his new contract partner to guide her. The flying monster charges forward, attempting a deadly low-flying attack. The man remains cool and instructs his student not to rush her first move. The baby holds back and pulls her hind legs in, waiting for the perfect distance to counterattack. As soon as an opening appears, the hero gives the command aloud, marking the exact moment to charge. Baring her small fangs fiercely, Ciale attacks like a true bolt of energy. With extreme precision, she sinks her teeth into the bird's neck mid-flight, breaking the enemy's offensive. The brutal impact slams the monster to the ground, creating an explosion of smoke and flying snow. A dark aura is extracted from the enemy's carcass and absorbed directly by the little fox through her inherited domination skill. Realizing the absurd strength of the small cub, the other birds in the air panic completely. Slowly, the baby turns her head and glares at her next victims with a purely predatory look. In the blink of an eye, she starts bouncing off the trees, forming a deadly, glowing zigzag pattern. The first target is hit head-on by a powerful headbutt that sends it flying with no chance to defend itself. Without losing momentum, she hits the next monster mid-flight, shattering the group's formation. A relentless sequence of blue charges decimates the entire flock in a matter of seconds. Watching the show, Kang Ho feels proud and comments that for a first real fight, her movement was excellent. Satisfied, the little one lands adorably on top of a completely defeated rooster's head. The monster lets out one last pathetic squawk before passing out from the crushing weight of the victor. Overflowing with magical energy, the ball of fur lets out a small roar, celebrating her own success. The system screen updates the pet's status, confirming her rarity has shot straight up to the coveted SS class. The excess absorbed magic condenses and materializes a small, glowing bell on the little creature's neck. Enchanted by her evolution, the master comments on how kids grow up in the blink of an eye and calls his student back to him. Hearing his call, the baby promptly twitches her ears and runs happily toward her owner. With her eyes shining with pride, the little fox smiles, silently asking for praise after finishing the massacre. The veteran gives a warm smile and congratulates his pet, confirming her work was flawless. Soon, he suggests they head back home before the mysterious portal closes and traps them there. But a disturbing sound of dark static echoes behind the pair, ruining the peaceful moment. Turning his head in alarm, the hero hears a macabre voice ordering all the dead to awaken at once. The carcasses of the defeated birds begin to rise like corrupted zombies, leaving the baby completely shocked by the bizarre scene. With no time to waste, the MC announces that friendship time is over and tells the pair to get out of there as fast as possible. In a great synchronized leap, they dive directly into the darkness of the escape portal. The spatial rift quickly shrinks and vanishes from the sky, leaving no trace behind. Skidding across the snowy ground on the other side, the man lands safely, letting out a long sigh of relief for having escaped. On the other side of the clearing, the group of fairies raises their little arms, cheering wildly that their savior has finally returned. The beast master's eyes widen, not understanding this over-the-top reception at all. Crying rivers of happy tears, the little creatures thank him profusely, calling him the great absolute being. Utterly confused, he points to his own chest, trying to process if that pompous title is really meant for him. But the fairies continue their emotional bows in the snow, treating the newcomer like a true, untouchable deity. It all starts with the MC staring at his own pet in complete silence, unsure how to react to the fairies' over-the-top worship. Soon, Kang-ho leans in, curiously asking how the leader of that group can speak the human language, guessing it must be some kind of magic. He also asks if all that talk about an absolute being and a silver deity was about little Siale. Excited by his interest, the blonde fairy explains that in their homeworld, her people have always worshipped these beasts as guardian gods, with the silver-furred ones being even more special. She tells the legend of how one of these mystical creatures with 5 tails saved their country from destruction caused by a terrible zombie dragon. Lifting the confused little fox by her armpits, the master listens as she explains that his pet is seen by them as a true, untouchable living legend. Because of this, the leader concludes that if the outsider treats such a majestic being like a mere child, he could only be the absolute being himself. As the little ones start a totally embarrassing welcome dance, the veteran concludes that this group is way too weird. He then reflects that he's never heard of this fairy tale and notices that the leader is wearing a crown. So the man asks directly if the little one is some kind of royalty among her kind. The fairy immediately stops her celebration with a jolt, having been found out. Exuding pure reverence, she confirms she is Johanna, the 4th princess of the Earth Fairy clan, impressed that she can't hide anything from her savior. The princess reports that the territory she had recently received suddenly turned into a dungeon out of nowhere. As soon as she regained consciousness from the blackout, she realized she had fallen into this strange world of snow. In total despair, Johanna reveals that monsters took over their home 3 days ago, and that her entire clan is at risk of annihilation if the situation continues. Summing up the depressing situation, the MC notes that the little ones are lost and starving, just as their own stomachs rumble loudly. With that, he remembers that near his human home there is a peaceful dungeon called the Orchard. In a very friendly tone, the man offers the place to the royalty if they want to seek shelter. The group immediately erupts in total euphoria, raising their arms and asking him to accept their eternal worship. Awkward with all the shouting, Kang-ho raises a hand, asking them to stop with all the reverence in the middle of the ice. Stroking his chin, he wonders to himself if all fairytale princesses act like fanatic servants all the time. But suddenly, an absurdly heavy boom makes the snowy ground tremble violently. The princess turns her head, terrified, sensing the approach of something extremely dangerous. Breaking through the blizzard, a gigantic white lion appears, roaring fiercely while exuding powerful blue magic energy. The fairies scream in terror, thinking they're about to be devoured by the monstrous beast. However, the widespread panic quickly turns into cries of deep admiration. The beast master appears, calmly riding on the back of the giant monster, leaving the little creatures in awe of the scene of pure domination. Stroking the beast's fur, he asks his big guy to hold back his excitement while the group continues to party around them. Right at that moment, the forgotten phone in his coat pocket starts vibrating intensely. Taking out the device, the hero is surprised to see a new notification in his messaging app. The screen shows a group with a cheesy name focused on senior health, where old acquaintances start arguing right after adding the veteran. Reading the childish taunts, the man lets out a nostalgic laugh, recognizing that the chat name has the unmistakable signature of his friend Chialbi. He remembers how the big old guy seemed so proud showing off an old model to him long ago. In the memory, the man in the suit flaunted his flip phone, pressing the buttons as if it were the pinnacle of modern technology. Back in the present, new messages keep popping up, with the team's 2 biggest rivals scheduling a duel to the end on Buckhanson Mountain. The MC comments lightly that those 2 idiots haven't lost their habit of fighting the second their eyes meet. A memory of the Great War resurfaces, showing the warriors trading insults in the middle of the apocalyptic battlefield. These stubborn fighters are his old comrades, the legendary 5 heroes mentioned in today's school books. Looking out at the vast forest, Kang-ho decides it's high time he saw the faces of his old war partners again. He also concludes that the best way to make the little fox the strongest beast on the planet is to train with the world's top warriors. Without much fuss, he types a simple greeting into the group, marking his return to society. Meanwhile, in a place far from the snow, a colossal crowd gathers at the foot of a mountain under the hot sun. A very excited reporter broadcasts the tense atmosphere of the makeshift arena live to thousands of viewers. He narrates that the news of the showdown between the sword god and the bow god drew this massive audience in an instant. As the crowd goes wild, the legendary swordsman takes an imposing stance atop a natural stone pillar, prepared for the slaughter. With a firm posture and his gray hair tied back, Park Junwoo glares at his opponent with extreme severity. On the opposite stone pillar, the other war veteran holds his majestic bow, awaiting the start of the inevitable confrontation. This is Kim Ho-young, owner of the title Bow God and ranked just below his eternal rival. Nearby, a woman in a black jacket excuses herself as she passes through the crowd, exuding a strong magical presence that makes people move aside. Hailed by the crowd as the famous Flame Witch, Lee Mina massages her forehead in annoyance, asking how long her older brothers intend to act like children. Very proudly, the swordsman bellows that he won't back down a single inch in today's dispute. The archer retorts, calling his rival a senile old fool and promising to make him one-handed very quickly. Drawing his blade from its sheath with purpose, Junwoo warns his opponent not to blame the sword for what's about to happen. Forming an arrow of pure energy on his bowstring, Ho-young calls his enemy to a direct fight with fire in his eyes. Sighing with exhaustion, the sorceress accepts that the terrible habits of those two old men will never change, no matter how much time passes. Taking the central position as judge, she raises her hand, declaring that the battle will officially count as a ranking match. However, just before lowering her arm to signal the start, the mage notices an overwhelming presence coming from above. The entire crowd looks up, confused, following the piercing sound of something plummeting from the clouds at high speed. Breaking through the air with absurd weight, Kang Ho lands explosively in the middle of the arena, his knee planted on the ground, illuminated by pure blue magic. The gigantic shockwave sweeps through the entire area, forcing the audience to hold on tight to avoid being blown away by the impact. As the dust and rocks begin to settle, the MC rises calmly in the center of the crater under the incredulous gazes of the crowd. With a sarcastic posture, the witch informs the two combatants that their long-awaited duel will have to be cancelled immediately. Outraged by the unexpected interruption, the sword god points his weapon, shouting that they're past the point of no return to back out now. Remaining calm, Mina simply gestures to the center of the arena, explaining that their little brother has just shown up. Hearing the revelation, the old swordsman trembles from head to toe, recognizing the familiar figure emerging from the smoke. On the other side of the field, the archer goes into the same state of absolute shock, stammering the name of the friend he thought was gone. In the midst of all the dramatic paralysis, Kang Ho simply raises a hand to greet his former comrades. With the baby fox sitting calmly on his head, he acts as if his catastrophic entrance was the most normal thing in the world. Getting over the shock, the archer scolds him, saying the kid took his sweet time showing up, while the sorceress focuses her attention on the little white ball on top of his hair. Completely ignoring the lecture, the master tells his pet they're going to eat lots of tasty things with their aunts and uncles, and then do some shopping. The little fox just tilts her head, very confused, not understanding a word of that exotic plan. Sometime later, the scene cuts to the luxurious facilities of the swordsman, who had recently retired as the master of a giant guild. The old warrior used his resources to found a smaller base on the outskirts of the mountain, with the sole focus of training and polishing the nation's new talents. In the back of the traditional complex, a heavy sliding door reveals the valuable and dark storage of medicinal herbs. Impressed with the collection, the MC admires a jar containing moon salt, but panics when the hungry cub simply sinks her teeth into the rare plant, devouring it all raw in one go. Resuming the conversation in the storage room, the old swordsman notes that the little fox is the spitting image of Sialwa and tells his friend to feed the little creature well. At that, Kang Ho asks if the veteran is sure, since the pet just swallowed 20 valuable roots right there. Almost in tears, the master's assistant comments that the outsider cleaned out the entire stock before the boss could feel bad about spending it. Very annoyed by the intrusion, Park Junwoo bellows that he had already set it all aside for the cub anyway, remaining calm. The MC just thanks him for the favor. Calling in the debt, the owner of the place tells him to show up more often if he's truly grateful. A moment later, the veteran excitedly comments that his war partner finally showed up after being missing for 15 years. The scene cuts to a table piled high with bottles of drinks and a lot of food. Showing off the feast, the swordsman jokes that this is 15 years of accumulated soju. Firing back, the man says he already heard how much he's been drinking with old Chialbi. Genuinely curious, Kang Ho asks why only his friend's physical appearance has aged while his personality remains the same. Memories of old battles surface as the Beast Master reflects on the passage of time, cutting through the nostalgic mood. The gray-haired man just tells the idiots to shut up and drink. Sometime later, the MC walks calmly through the capital's streets toward a large bank. As soon as he enters, the manager greets him with extreme excitement, thanking him for his visit after so long and immediately offering the VIP room. Thinking about how he'll do the shopping he promised the little fox, the master innocently asks what mana stones are. The man in the suit simply opens the enormous private vault, informing him that the weapon stock is exactly where it was before, for him to use as he pleases. Meanwhile, outside the bank, a mysterious biker waits on the busy street. Focusing his gaze, the man in sunglasses carefully watches the establishment's exit, seemingly looking for a specific target. Walking out the front door, the MC is escorted by the manager, who continues to bow and thank him for his business. On his bike, the watcher scoffs at the employee's over-the-top treatment of such an ordinary guy and decides to find out the true size of the target's fortune. To do this, he activates a special lens in his glasses that functions as a tracker for magic power and mana stones. Scanning the man in the suit first, the device finds no magic and only detects a few low-grade stones. Clicking his tongue in disappointment, the spy grumbles that the employee is all show with no money in his pocket. He then wonders why they're fawning over such a weird guy. However, as soon as the lens focuses on Kang-ho, the system beeps wildly, detecting 3 max-rank stones in one of his pockets. As if that weren't enough, the other side of the man's pants holds 7 more high-level stones. Utterly shocked, the biker loses his composure, calculating that this absurd amount of stones is equivalent to almost 1.6 billion in cash, just sitting loosely in his pockets. Next, the thug tries to measure the target's magic level, suspecting he might be some elite hunter to be walking around so carefree. To his surprise, the display shows that the stranger is just a common human with no magical awakening as he walks calmly down the street. With a very greedy smile, the criminal concludes that the lone man is basically a winning lottery ticket, just wandering around the city. Without wasting a moment, he calls his gang leader, informing him they've just found a perfect target in the Yeonjunpo area. Oblivious to the chase, the beast master walks along eating a skewer and tries to remember his destination, knowing there's only one place that would accept so many stones as payment. Slowly revving his bike, the henchman confirms on the phone that he'll keep tailing the careless billionaire. The journey ends in a dark, rough area known as the district's 12th Street. Sneaking into an isolated alley, the veteran arrives at the black market he was looking for. Inside a rustic shop, an old woman with animal ears greets the king of beasts on his rare visit after about 10 years. Correcting the shopkeeper, the customer states it's been closer to 15. Making small talk, the woman assumes the cub he brought last time must have grown into a fierce monster and asks about his new pet. Analyzing the little fox up close, she immediately notices its unique features and asks if the little creature is a descendant of the legendary HWA lineage. Being completely honest, Kang-ho explains that the cub is a subspecies, a little different from the famous Sialwa. Sitting back down at the counter, the old merchant confesses that in over 100 years of life, this is the first time she's encountered a phantom beast of this type, thanking him for the unique opportunity. Wishing him good luck, the shopkeeper hopes the master can raise another unbeatable battle creature, as he always does. Letting out a muffled laugh at the warm reception, the stranger resumes his walk through the district's night market. As he looks at the stalls, he reflects on how various races from a parallel dimension crossed over to Earth in the past. This whole place was formed to house these different peoples, who are trying to keep their own cultures alive in the human world. In fact, the great sorceress Lee Mina is part of one of these mystical races that immigrated long ago. This particular magical people has the absurd advantage of spending 80% of their lives maintaining a completely youthful and flawless appearance. Arriving at his final destination, the man is greeted with shouts from a very excited dwarven blacksmith, thrilled to see the famous customer again. The artisan asks if the hero found everything he was looking for, receiving a calm, positive response. Scolding the noise of the hammers in the background, the MC notes that the workshop is still packed with work, confirming his suspicion. The short man complains about the delayed orders from the big guilds that leave the place in chaos. Changing the subject, the dwarf notices the bracelet on the customer's wrist and asks if something happened to that priceless artifact known as the Aura Blade. Showing the equipment, Kang-ho explains he's just taking the weapon out of storage after 15 years. His idea was to ask for some basic maintenance, but seeing how busy the workshop is, he'd rather not bother them. Letting out a booming laugh, the blacksmith announces that the great hero's requests are always top priority, as his people never forget a favor. Turning to the back of the shop, the boss orders his employees to drop all other projects immediately and focus only on the master's equipment. Amused by the frantic shouting, the man comments that his old friend hasn't changed a bit over the years. Outside, the biker gang continues to stalk their target, while one of them asks what the guy was buying in that strange market. Reading the report, the gang leader lists off century-old roots, fruits from the world tree, and mystical stones, leaving the henchmen speechless at such absurdly expensive items. Aware of the gold mine they've found, the leader of the robbers orders the team to attack as soon as the suit-wearing man is far enough from the safe area. Back in the workshop, the artisan lifts the floating bracelet, glowing with pure blue energy after finishing the repair and installing a small upgrade. Handing over the jewel, the blacksmith guarantees that the flow of magic will be much easier to control now that the maximum output has been enhanced, asking if he'd like to test it. Calmly putting the item on his wrist, the MC simply declines the offer. Bidding farewell to his friend, the man waves from behind, claiming he has a strong feeling he'll be testing the weapon on the streets very soon. Walking alone through the district's dark alleys, the master continues on his way, pretending not to notice the imminent danger. Bursting from the alley's shadows, dozens of armed thugs leap out at once with the gang leader's battle cry. Without a hint of fear in the face of the ambush, Kang-ho just sighs wearily, noting that the rats have finally come out of the sewer. Drawing his knife, the leader of the criminals scoffs at the confident attitude of a common human surrounded by experienced hunters. Intrigued by the comment, the stranger quickly deduces that the gang used those cheap magic tracking lenses to measure his strength. Gulping in the face of the target's unsettling calm, the assailant takes a step back, fearing the glasses might have failed. Shaking off the fear, the boss yells for his men to ignore the bluff, arguing that there are only 3 people in the country with immeasurable combat power, and he knows all their faces. Seeing no way to avoid the confrontation, Kang-ho clenches his own wrist, deciding to end this quickly now that everyone's gathered. Unleashing his dormant power, he activates the newly repaired magic artifact without any restrictions. Immediately, a gigantic column of blue aura erupts around his body, activating the famous energy blade. Frozen mid-leap, the henchman's eyes widen in terror at the crushing pressure that has taken over the alley. With no time to react, the criminals are violently swept into the air by the mere shockwave generated from the hero's transformation. Exuding pure sovereignty, the Beast Master stands in the center of the magical explosion, his new blade glowing intensely in the darkness. In a total panic, the gang leader breaks into a cold sweat, trembling from head to toe at the unreal display of strength. His tracking visor still reads 0 magic power detected, failing miserably to comprehend the magnitude of the monster standing before him. In complete desperation, the biker realizes the system isn't broken, but rather incapable of measuring an energy that surpasses the 100,000 combat point mark. Raising his magic-charged hand toward the thug's face, Kang-ho prepares for the final blow as the man freaks out upon discovering the existence of another living legend. As the lenses of his glasses crack from the sheer density of the aura, the criminal can only stammer one last question, begging to know who the heck this guy is before being annihilated. Maintaining the brilliant blue aura exploding around him, the MC glares at the terrified thug without a hint of hesitation. The energy blade continues to pulse intensely on his wrist. Just then, Kang-ho checks his illuminated phone, which displays the criminal leader's wanted poster. Analyzing the information, he notes that the guy is a former executive of the Bikia faction, who's been committing armed robberies and murders in the worst possible way. Realizing the enormous power difference, the gang leader panics and decides he needs to flee immediately. Without wasting a moment, the criminal shouts, activating his unique assassin skill. His body becomes a purple blur as he quickly leaps along the alley walls, trying to escape the monster. During his desperate escape, the assailant boasts that no one has ever managed to catch him after he activates his power. Watching the movement from a distance, the stranger can't understand why someone with such a good skill would choose a life of crime. Next, the Beast Master propels his own body forward, creating a trail of destruction in the ground from sheer speed. While fleeing across the rooftops, the gang leader remembers he was once among the top 50 in the country and fears he's facing someone from the top of the rankings. With that, he swears to himself that he won't let his guard down again under any circumstances. However, as soon as he lands in a safe spot, the fugitive looks around, completely confused, searching for his target. Before he can react, Kang-ho appears out of nowhere, intercepting his path and striking the criminal head-on with his magic blade. Easily disarming his enemy, the hero calmly warns that it's not a good idea to swing a dangerous knife around like that. The blue energy blade slices the assailant's weapon in half with no difficulty. Completely outmatched, the thug's clothes are torn and he falls back onto the roof in a state of shock. Examining the equipment, Kang-ho praises the blacksmith's work, noting that the magic efficiency has greatly improved and power control is much more precise. Seeing his enemy groaning on the ground, the stranger calmly tells him not to try touching anything dangerous. Noting his previous movements, the hero deduces that the guy is over 50 and therefore also part of the old war generation. Trembling with rage on his knees, the criminal questions the point of living in this peaceful world. Completely unhinged, the man screams that peace is too boring and that he's about to lose his mind from the lack of splattering blood and piles of bodies. Staring at the scene coldly, the Beast Master reflects that problematic people like this still pop up from time to time. They are hunters whose humanity was destroyed by the Long War and who ended up lost in the world of crime forever. These crazy veterans have become just another one of the sicknesses that modern society tries to sweep under the rug. With a psychopathic smile, the assailant lifts his face, asking if that manic feeling gets to the hero too. As the only response, the MC maintains a heavy silence and a look of pure disappointment. Far away, the gray-haired master continues drinking at the bar and strikes up a conversation about his partner's recent encounter with the legend. Letting out a loud laugh, the old man questions why the heck Kang Ho is still young while the swordsman got all wrinkled, making the man stammer as he tries to explain. Changing the subject, the dark-haired man comments that he found the war hero to have a surprisingly gentle temperament. Downing his drink, the veteran supposes that must be how his old partner appears to others now. However, the old man makes a point of emphasizing that this tranquility isn't the whole story. He explains that when you really get to know Kang Ho, you discover he has a terrible personality, especially when dealing with the underworld. Back at the rooftop confrontation, the hero glares at the assailant, who is sweating profusely, and deduces that his excuse for hating peace is simple boredom. Preparing a fist charged with brutal magic, the master decrees that if tranquility bores him so much, he's about to change that. At the bar, the gray-haired man continues his explanation, stating that the boredom excuse is the biggest nonsense anyone could say to the legend. Without any mercy, the MC lands a devastating punch on the enemy's face, as the veteran's voice confesses that he'd rather face the Reaper than tick off his friend. With the impact, the thug is brutally thrown through the air, receiving another sequence of precise and merciless blows. Emanating an impressive killing pressure, Kang Ho advances, determined to make the lunatic wish for his own end right then and there. Unable to defend himself, the gang leader's face is crushed by another absurd attack. A huge shockwave destroys the structure below as the criminal is slammed into the ground with full force. Suddenly, the phone on the bar table starts ringing, indicating a video call from the MC himself. The white-haired master breaks into a surprised smile, commenting that it's a real miracle for the guy to call first. Answering the call, he sees his friend on the screen asking if the name Li Jiangmayong means anything to the Bikia faction. Instantly furious, the old man yells into the phone that the scoundrel is the useless trash who has been dragging his organization's name through the mud for years. Completely outraged, the gray-haired leader demands to know the traitor's location to tear his limbs off personally and promises to send his goons to the scene. Watching the criminal pathetically drag himself across the dark street, the man says on the call that he's already taken care of the entire enemy team by himself. Trembling with fear upon realizing the man's identity, the thug hears the hero question if this miserable hideout was all the gang had of value. Crying desperately, the assailant assures him he wouldn't dare lie to a legend, and reveals that someone named Phantom stole the rest of their stock. Hearing this peculiar name, the MC becomes thoughtful, weighing the new information. The criminal explains that this Phantom is a famous thief who has been emptying vaults and always leaves a black card behind, using the opportunity to beg for his life. Turning his back with an indifferent tone, the stranger agrees with a drawn-out sound, seeming to accept the request. In an extremely fast move, he spins around and lands an energy-charged punch right in the center of the fugitive's chest. Clutching his stomach, the man screams in absolute agony, feeling all his magic and mana channels disappear instantly. With the utmost calm, Kang Ho says he spared his life but destroyed his power core, forcing him to live as a common human from now on. The ex-hunter writhes in pain, screaming that returning to being a normal person is basically a death sentence. Cold as ice, the master ignores the scene and tells him to fill the empty space of his magic with that lesson, while the little fox watches everything from inside his coat. Resuming his path and leaving the scum behind, the hero reassures his pet, stating that not every war veteran ended up corrupted like that. Walking back to comfort, he promises to make a super tasty and nutritious meal for the cub, but warns that she needs to go through an important step first. The scene peacefully cuts to a beautiful traditional house isolated in the thick snow, with smoke rising from the chimney. Suddenly thrown into the water, the little fox thrashes in absolute panic, letting out sharp yelps. The man's huge hand moves mercilessly toward the terrified pet. Without any ceremony, he drops the small animal into a transparent basin. Seeing the cub splash water everywhere, the MC finds it amusing that she hates baths as much as his old companion, but warns that there's no escape. Holding a green mystic fruit that glows intensely, he assures her this isn't just any cleaning. He then dunks the priceless item from the world tree, which he bought on the black market, directly into the basin. With gentle movements, the hero uses his own magic to slowly melt the fruit, mixing its essence into the warm water. Gradually, the crystal-clear liquid takes on a brilliant, power-filled green hue. Feeling the pure energy flow through her body, Ciale instantly relaxes and lets out a sigh of pure bliss, swimming in the luxurious water. Admiring the cute scene, the man smiles, relieved that she liked the special treatment. He explains that warriors of the beast race usually just scrape a tiny bit of this fruit's peel to rub on their bodies for strength before battles. On the other hand, his little pet is getting the insane luxury of using a whole fruit and absorbing all its power in one go. The little fox continues to float with her eyes closed, enjoying the mystical energy penetrating her fur. Surprised by the unreal absorption rate, Kang Ho's eyes widen as he realizes the water is already evaporating quickly. Completely refreshed, the cub stands up, radiating a charming magical glow as the master watches her with great affection. Watching his glowing pet, Kang Ho notices something strange, as the effect of the mystical fruit should have worn off by now. Just then, a bright system notification suddenly appears in the air. The panel reveals that the little fox has acquired the title Guardian of Nature, possessing an absurdly strong ability to absorb natural energy, 1.5 times greater than others of her species. Impressed with the result, the beast master wonders why the remedies work so well on her, but soon gives the cub a pat, announcing it's time to eat. Outside, the rustic cabin remains isolated amidst the harsh blizzard. Meanwhile, the atmosphere inside is lively and warm. A few magical fairies and exotic birds carry heavy ingredients, complaining that the man was away for days just to get these precious items. Holding a heavy pot, the MC agrees it was a lot of effort and declares they're finally going to start cooking. The little helpers pour vegetables and herbs into the pot at the hero's command. He assesses the extremely rare items, like mystical roots and seeds, explaining that normal fire wouldn't even tickle the tough shells of these ingredients. Looking at the energy stones in a fairy's hand, Kang Ho decides that amount will be enough. With a quick move, the master tosses everything directly into the furnace, warning that a normal cooking fire would just cause a useless explosion. Concentrating his own aura, the man stares at the flames seriously. The rare items begin to crack under the absurd pressure of the scalding magic. Terrified by the violent reaction in the pot, the little fairy screams in despair, thinking everything is about to fly apart. A column of intense flames erupts, almost reaching the cabin's ceiling. Without losing his cool, the hero extends his hand, using his own blue energy to instantly tame the fire. Maintaining absolute control, he cooks the raw materials in the infernal heat as if it were the easiest thing in the world. The ingredients finally start to roast and release their magical essences under the high temperature. Watching the scene in shock, the little helper reflects on how terrifying the MC's power is, to be able to manipulate such a destructive element so effortlessly. The cook instructs that the secret is to roast everything until it becomes a fine, consistent powder. Right after, he asks for some moon salt, and the fairy promptly delivers the mystical seasoning, flying at full speed. Squeezing a bundle of herbs firmly, the man extracts a greenish juice to bind the recipe together. The mixture transforms into a golden, perfectly smooth paste. Using his hands, Kang Ho shapes the paste, creating small, glowing spheres of pure energy. Several of these magical pellets form in the pot, enveloped in a powerful aura, completing the special dish. Offering the glowing delicacy to the fairy, he asks if she wants a taste, but the little creature refuses in a panic, claiming her body would explode from so much power. On the other side, the loud sound of drooling fills the room. The little fox stares at the food, fascinated, drooling buckets as she eagerly awaits her turn. Amused by the situation, the hero tosses one of the pellets to his pet, but warns her she can only have one because the effect is too strong. In the blink of an eye, the cub gobbles down the entire pill with gusto. Seconds later, the animal freezes in place, absorbing the impact of the meal. A bluish light overflows from her body as if an energy dam had just burst. Howling with joy, the pet feels the power flowing as a system notification updates the status of her ultra-rare species, revealing yet unknown potentials. The fairies celebrate in shock as they realize the fox has doubled in size overnight. Full of pent-up energy, the creature dashes out of the cabin, kicking up snow everywhere. The MC just watches the commotion from a distance with a satisfied expression. Running freely through the blizzard, the little one leaves a trail of glowing paw prints as she enjoys her new strength. The beast master notices that her growth rate is incredibly faster than his former companions. Feeling nostalgic, he wonders how things might have been different if he had taken such good care of his first partner, since back in the war days, he was inexperienced and just fought blindly. The painful memory of the past shows the younger, wounded man on the battlefield, regretting not having fed his old ally properly or given her the rest she needed. The pain of losing that giant wolf was exactly what motivated him to study the biology and care of magical beasts so deeply. Back in the present, Kang-ho puts the past aside to focus on the little fox playing excitedly in front of him. With a clumsy leap, the little animal pounces toward her owner. Unable to dodge, the man takes the full weight of his pet, sinking into the snow and complaining that she's getting too heavy. Tossing the cub up into the snow, the hero silently promises to spoil her in every way possible. Petting the curious fox's ears, he realizes she's looking for her other furry friend to show off to. With the little animal perched on his shoulder, the man announces it's time to go get Mungchai. The icy landscape reveals mountains covered in a thick layer of ice and tranquility. Hidden in the landscape, a massive white saber-toothed tiger sleeps peacefully. In the beast's deep memories, the reddish reflection in its eyes shows the face of a tired old man. This old hunter appears, wounded in the middle of a storm, completely confused by the creature before him. The memory reveals that the man found the tiger when it was just a cub, shivering from the cold, realizing its litter had abandoned it. Trying to ward off the danger, the human told the animal to follow its own kind before the containment fences were raised. Since the beast didn't move, the hunter drew his blade, prepared for the worst. Gritting his teeth, the old man threatened to finish the cub, claiming even a common human could handle the job, but the little cat just wagged its tail innocently. Before he could do anything, the man coughed up a pool of blood and fell to his knees in the snow, watched by the tiny beast. Staring at the mutual fragility between them, a heavy silence filled the freezing air. Changing his mind, the old man offered a piece of jerky to the hungry cub, who began to pant with joy. Watching the little cat devour the food, the hunter reflected melancholically that staying alive was a thankless task for anyone. Filled with gratitude, the feline began to lick the old man's face, who let out a sincere laugh, pitying the situation. Waving from behind, the human said goodbye, telling the cub to take care and go its own way. The little saber-tooth stood planted in the snow, watching the only person who had ever helped him walk away. However, watching the bright horizon, the animal felt a determination grow inside it. The figure of the hunter disappearing under the sunlight was forever etched in the creature's mind. From that day on, that unusual kindness motivated the little monster to survive and run tirelessly through the icy mountains. The impact of its paws on the snow showed that its solitary training was yielding impressive results. Thanks to that simple act of kindness, the saber-toothed tiger grew up to become a formidable predator. Sometime later, the giant beast pounced on the old hunter, knocking him down in a loving hug as the man laughed, complaining it was like a furball attacking him, and named him on the spot. With a docile and goofy expression, the animal accepted the ridiculous nickname with the utmost pride. Sitting together in the cold, the old man began to vent, asking if his companion didn't find their friendship strange, since monsters had killed his entire family during the Great War. Coughing weakly, he revealed he had caught an otherworldly disease while wandering alone in misery, pointing out that, technically, the tiger should be his mortal enemy. The beast listened to his friend's words with a sad, understanding look. Stroking the soft fur, the hunter admitted that maybe he had seen a younger version of himself in the cub, abandoned with nothing and no one. Suddenly, the man coughed up a huge amount of blood and fell forward, leaving the tiger completely desperate. Dragging himself through the snow with difficulty, the old hunter tries to calm the cub, remembering that when he was sick, the animal brought him food and promising to do the same now. The feline just watches as the old man slowly moves away, assuring him he'll be back soon. With ragged breath and an exhausted body, the human takes one last nostalgic look back. Unable to take another step, he collapses onto the cold ground, leaving the tiger desperate. The little monster runs as fast as it can until it reaches the fallen body of its savior in the middle of the blizzard. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the creature turns its head toward the glowing human city in the distance. In its mind, the old man's warning echoes, telling Mungchai never to go down the mountain and to run immediately if he sees people. Defying the warning, the animal decides to seek help anyway. The hunter lies still, completely unconscious on the ice. With that, the cub charges through the dangerous mountain, focused only on finding someone who can save its companion. The sight of an outpost appears in the middle of the snowstorm, its emergency alarms blaring loudly. The guards panic instantly upon spotting the beast from a distance, shouting that it's an S-level threat. They order the immediate evacuation of residents and call for reinforcements, assuming the monster's mother must be hiding nearby. Not understanding all the commotion, Mungchai desperately tries to signal that he means no harm. But before he could do anything, he is bombarded by sharp magic beams from the soldiers. With the sudden impact of the attack, the saber-tooth is thrown down below the protective wall. Even in freefall, the beast thinks only of his friend, internally begging for help. Gravely wounded on its side and bleeding heavily, the little monster groans in pain under the heavy blows from the humans, feeling an immense sadness for only wanting to save the hunter. The soldiers advance mercilessly, surrounding the creature fallen on the snow-covered ground. Just then, one of the officers asks Kang Ho not to get involved, assuring him the team would handle the invasion on their own. The cub pants weakly, losing strength as dark blood stains the ice. Ignoring the soldier, the MC walks over to the feline, stating that it's a lost cub with no adults around and that he would take responsibility. The guard backs down, immediately obeying the order, as the man stops beside the injured animal. Extending a hand to heal the beast, the hero tells it to show him the way, leaving the tiger in awe as it feels all its strength return instantly. Far away, the old man's chest begins to glow intensely with the same mysterious energy, reviving his dormant body. The beast master calmly explains that the patient caught a disease from another continent, caused by an excessive buildup of magic in his heart that was eating his body from the inside out. A healing purple aura flows from the MC's hand directly into the deep wound on the man's chest. The old man finally regains consciousness, letting out a confused groan. Upon opening his eyes completely, he finds the face of his dear furry companion staring at him up close. Unable to contain his joy, the hunter hugs the huge beast in the middle of the blizzard and celebrates their warm reunion with a laugh. Back in the present, Kang Ho walks calmly through the frozen landscape until he finds the isolated adult tiger. The immense saber-tooth stares at the ground with a deeply sad and dejected expression. Approaching, the man rests a comforting hand on his furry partner's leg, carrying the little fox perched on his shoulder. The majestic beast keeps its gaze fixed on a small stone memorial erected on the icy mountain. Etched into the rustic monument, the aged photograph of the old hunter withstands the harsh weather. Immediately, the memory of the old man's last words resurfaces, where he asked the animal to go with the hero and live freely in the world. The MC recalls that 5 years after the human entrusted the tiger to him, the old man finally passed away in peace. Since then, Mungchai makes a point to visit the grave of his first and greatest friend every year at the same time. Watching the big guy's heavy grief, the little pet gets genuinely emotional and starts crying along with him. As the giant sheds huge tears onto the snow, the man reflects that the hunter would never feel lonely with such a loyal partner always visiting him. Suddenly, a bizarre monster bee erupts from the ground, brutally shattering the moment of silence and respect. The hunter notices the sound of the hostile creature's flapping wings appearing right behind them. Flying aggressively, the giant insect charges toward the group, while Kang Ho just finishes his thought, figuring the old man isn't cold where he is now. In a matter of seconds, dozens of other identical monsters burst from the frozen ground, surprising the hero with the sheer number of this new invasive species. Facing the danger head-on, he activates the system's analytical vision, discovering that these beasts possess blind obedience and become extremely dangerous when attacking in a swarm. One of the bees aims its stinger directly at the little fox, immediately drawing the MC's attention to the attack. Before the man needs to intervene, his pet leaps into the air and shatters the creature's tough shell with a savage bite. Impressed by the cub's reflexes, he notes that she tracked the target's demonic energy perfectly. Right behind the commotion, the gigantic Mungchai smashes one of the monsters into the ground, crushing the snow with a single heavy blow. The master grabs the furious little creature by the scruff of her neck, holding her tight so she doesn't carelessly rush into the middle of the battle. Next, he picks up the broken stinger of one of the dead creatures and crushes the sharp tip using only his fingers. Since his little partner's body was fully strengthened by the mystic tree, the hero is confident that useless little weapon would never pierce her tough skin. Inspecting the dark venom dripping from the broken blade, he discovers it's a potent paralyzing toxin, which explains the high risk of this flying species. Piecing together the threat, the man decides he can't just ignore the presence of this dangerous plague on their mountain. Pointing the way with his free hand, he calls the tiger to start the real hunt and clear their territory. The beast crouches to the ground, gaining maximum momentum, while Kang-ho sighs in relief that there are no unprotected villages nearby. The main problem isn't even the lethal venom, but the absolutely insatiable hunger of this bizarre swarm scattered across the sky. These pests are infamous for chewing through entire mountains, devouring any type of vegetation and tree in their path without a trace. Being extreme omnivores with no breaks, the bees even devour the carcasses of other monsters, and the hunter warns that they would soon attack human cities in search of fresh meat. Riding imposingly on his companion's back, he swears he will exterminate the entire colony before the tragedy reaches civilian areas. The saber-tooth shoots through the snow like a bullet, tearing through the wind toward the epicenter of the aerial chaos. In the heat of the frantic race, the MC narrows his eyes, identifying a sinister anomaly in the icy landscape. An immense dungeon portal, surrounded by purple lightning and demonic energy, bizarrely opens in the middle of the isolated mountain. Staring at the dark hole, the master comments to his partner that it's been 15 years since they had to close an invasion-level portal together, remembering the absurd ordeal they went through back then. Quite excited about their current strength, he laughs, stating that things are very different today and tells the group to jump in. The albino beast lands its giant weight on the rocky alien ground, shattering the entrance. Right away, the entire army of bees charges forward, forming a deadly cloud to protect their base from the surprise invasion. Without retreating a single millimeter, Kang-ho concentrates a colossal amount of energy, magically releasing his pure predatory instincts. A thunderous blue shockwave explodes around him, vaporizing the frontline insects as if they were nothing. Inside the dungeon, the surreal floating scenery literally looks like a piece cut out from another world, being the perfect ecosystem to generate treasures not found in normal portals. Hovering menacingly in the center of the abyss, a huge hive of stone and slime serves as the nest for the invading legion. However, the real terror of such a valuable place is the simply overwhelming strength of the guardians patrolling the queen. Genuinely shocked by their appearance, the man notices that the defending insects are 3 times the normal size and carry a suffocating demonic aura. This monstrous variant charges furiously from above, forcing the hero to dodge a deadly stinger thrust at the last second. At that same moment, the system's translucent screen classifies the bizarre enemy as a king bee, showing surprisingly poor defense and magic potential attributes for something of its size. Seeing the cloud of giant bees approaching, the MC comments that the guardians of this place are much stronger than the monsters they faced outside. One of the creatures charges forward, opening its sharp claws against the group. The hero quickly activates his ability, ensuring a sensory connection with the enormous tiger. Because of this powerful link, the master and the beast share all senses and physical abilities as they fight together in enemy territory. The giant feline pushes off, planting its feet firmly on the rocky ground. It shoots off like a shining bolt toward the flying swarm. Mungchai plows through the crowd of insects, tearing several apart at once with a brutal impact. Taking advantage of the opening created by his partner, Kang-ho leaps into the fray, slashing through the bees with swift strikes. Focused on clearing the path, he swings his energy blade, slicing through opponents without giving them a chance to defend. Right behind, the little fox leaps with her mouth open, ready to join the fight. The small pet sinks her teeth directly into the back of one of the enraged monsters. But the creature thrashes desperately, trying to throw the cub off. Watching his companion's effort, the man laughs and says that target is still too big for her mouth. The saber-tooth lands heavily on the ground, destroying a few more creatures in the process. However, the hunter quickly realizes the situation isn't normal. No matter how many bees they take down, the horde just keeps coming from the bottom of the pit. Sensing an overwhelming presence from afar, Kang-ho notices a very strong demonic energy coming from the lower part of the abyss. Telling his furry partner to stay put, the hero decides to investigate the source of all that power himself. He throws himself off the rocky platform, free-falling toward the bottom of the lair. He dives through the dark air, surrounded only by his intense blue aura. Holding his pet with one hand, the MC prepares his concentrated energy blade, ready for any surprise attack. The scene below reveals an even denser cloud of insects orbiting the center of the place. Completely shocked by the sight, the man's eyes widen as he understands the beast's strategy. That colossal floating hive is exactly what the entire army was trying to protect with their lives. Without wasting a moment, he lands firmly at the entrance of the giant structure, creating a shockwave on the alien ground. Confirming his suspicions, the hero finds that the gigantic nest is the true source of the evil energy. Just then, a shadowy figure with red eyes begins to emerge from the darkness within the hive. The creature mutters in annoyance that the invaders managed to break through all the defenses to reach the core. Kang-ho tenses up, facing the menacing silhouette head-on. The monster grumbles in frustration, stating that everything is completely ruined now. The MC remains absolutely silent, awaiting the mysterious enemy's next move. Relieved to realize the human can understand its words, the shadow gasps, thanking the heavens for the lack of an immediate attack. Completely confused by the creature's cowardly attitude, the hunter wonders what kind of demon this is. Regaining a bit of its threatening posture, the evil being tells the invader to listen closely, revealing that in his prime he was known as Tio, the fourth strongest man in the demon realm. Noticing the dark energy gathering around his opponent, the hero focuses his gaze, preparing for the inevitable battle. The demon raises his voice, declaring that he is there for one great purpose. Raising his hands in the air, the creature unconditionally surrenders, taking on the harmless appearance of a young man in a suit with white hair. Sweating profusely, Tio confesses that he hates fighting, especially against absurdly strong monsters who walk around disguised as humans. While the enemy tries to explain himself, the little fox calmly chews on one of the defeated insects behind her master. Faced with this utterly pathetic surrender, Kang-ho deactivates his glowing blade with a heavy sigh. Since a peaceful conversation is possible, the man notes that this guy is very different from the irrational killing machines of the war era. Compared to those savage monsters, the newcomer seems almost like a common human, making the hero question his true nature. Quite nervous, the young man in the suit looks away, replying that, by classification, he is indeed a member of the demon race. Intrigued by the unusual situation, the MC asks what someone with that title would be doing hiding at the bottom of a dungeon. With that, Tio reports that he was caught in the portal's formation while running for his life, accidentally bringing his precious bee along with him. The system screen displays the giant bee's data, confirming it's the mother of the entire swarm, possessing high rarity and support skills. The hunter pieces it together, understanding that the hidden monster was just the queen of those annoying pests. Petting the glowing insect protectively, the demon swears his offspring aren't dangerous, and that he only sent out a few scouts to explore. Observing the bizarre scene of affection between the two, the human is left speechless. Excited by his own explanation, the suited man claims that by turning the bees into this fossilized state, they can survive by eating only pollen without harming anyone. At that exact moment, the group's pet takes a hearty bite of the enemy's dark aura. The former Fourth Lord continues to brag, saying he's raised the queen since she was a grub and will therefore take full responsibility for the nest. Happily sucking the purple magic directly from the prisoner's body, the little white cub finds the demonic snack simply delicious. In deep despair from the sneak attack, Tio tries to back away, trembling and shouting about what kind of insane beast eats evil power like that. Utterly terrified of the little devourer, he tearfully begs Kang-ho to make his pet stop immediately. The man watches the drama with his arms crossed, but the painful memories of the demon's overwhelming force during the old conflict still haunt his mind. Deciding not to press his luck against a lord, he prepares his intense blue energy in the palm of his hand. In a swift, precise move, the hunter strikes his opponent's chest, delivering a violent blow directly to his mana center. The demon lets out a sharp cry of agony as the invading magic forcibly blocks his internal channels. Finishing the containment job, the human ensures that he still needs a firm security lock for this prisoner. Shocked by the sudden feeling of emptiness, the young albino realizes something fundamental is missing from his body. Utterly terrified, the suited man finds that his dark energy has completely vanished, while the little fox celebrates her hearty meal. Ignoring the other's suffering, Kang-ho coldly warns that if the target tries anything funny, he will be executed on the spot. Huddled in fear next to the little glutton, Tio stammers his agreement, wondering if all humans are this addicted to magic power. Meanwhile, outside the portal, the once peaceful scene has given way to a gigantic crowd of people gathered in the snow. The reason for this chaotic gathering is that the guilds have organized a deadly survival tournament to decide who gets first dibs on clearing the newly opened dungeon. With the end of the Great War, an event of this level was no longer a lethal threat, but a treasure chest coveted by organizations. In the middle of the makeshift arena, a man in a suit delivers a brutal punch, shattering his opponent's defense in front of everyone. Even the Great Nappa Guild brought its elite fighter specifically to win this important resource dispute. The defeated big guy flies through the air, spraying blood, and falls powerless before the watching crowd. This show-off winner is King, a hunter ranked among the top 10 in the country who loves to appear on social media. Maintaining his arrogant posture, the influencer records a video mocking the loser and telling his followers he'll turn him into mincemeat in just 5 seconds. But a rough voice cuts through the amateurish atmosphere, warning that the show-off's time is up. A sturdy man with scars on his face enters the combat area, cracking his neck, and is identified as Broken, the vice leader of another gigantic corporation. Calmly putting his phone away, the blonde man in sunglasses taunts him, asking if the newcomer wants a beating too. The pair walks through the dark rift, leaving the dungeon behind. As soon as they step outside, the hunter maintains a firm posture while the demon walks huddled behind him. The tense air of the place immediately grabs the MC's attention. Just then a heavy body flies through the air, kicking up snow and dust with a brutal impact. Broken hits the ground, spitting blood, and slides to a stop right at Kang Ho's feet. Completely startled by the violent scene, Tio asks where that guy fell from. Ignoring the mess at his feet, the hero just focuses on the crowd ahead. He casually comments that the scenery outside has changed a lot since he entered the portal. Noticing the two of them, one of the hunters points with a trembling hand and states that they just came out of the gate. With the utmost calm, the man confirms the obvious observation. The simple response leaves the crowd furious and completely outraged by his audacity. At that moment, King steps forward, radiating power, and questions who the intruders think they are. In the middle of the audience, a guild member shouts curses at the pair. Ready to attack, the influencer summons a storm of green energy around himself. Huddled behind his master, the albino whispers, asking if those humans want to kill them, but gets a quick scolding to stay quiet and just keep walking. Analyzing the fighter's aggressive behavior, the hunter notes his arrogant personality. The violent wind generated by his opponent beats against Kang Ho's serene face without effect. Like a flash of lightning, King demands to know who gave them permission to leave the dungeon like that. Calmly raising just his hand, the hero asks since when he needs authorization for that. Furious at the affront, the blonde man replies that they are fighting here precisely for the right of first entry. As the man processes how the rules have changed, the guild's henchmen scan his body and conclude he's just a common human with no magic power. Fearing for his life, Tio nervously approaches and whispers, asking if the master is going to off this insolent guy. Without changing his expression, the hunter gives a short negative answer. He breaks into a calm smile and reinforces that he doesn't intend to take anyone's life. Skeptical knowing his partner's absurd strength, the demon insists on the question, expecting the worst. Sticking to his word, the MC assures him once more that he won't do it. Feeling ignored, King loses his patience and tells the powerless loser to get lost immediately. Staring coldly at the blonde man, Kang Ho mentally reaffirms his promise not to be lethal. With an invisible push, the hero dashes forward, tearing through the air and surprising his opponent with absurd speed. During the move, he quickly remembers the video he recorded with the Bikia guild leader days ago. In the memory, leader Lee Hyuk recognizes his master's old student over the phone, while the hero gets updated on the new gate priority rules. Back in the present, King is still yelling about his internet followers, but the MC is already closing in behind him. The influencer stops talking, feeling the wind, trying to remember where he's heard the intruder's name. Suddenly in shock, the fighter connects the identity to the King of Beasts, one of the 5 great heroes. The memory of his own master comes back to the insolent man's mind with clarity. The old man seriously explained that Kang Ho was very dangerous, and it would be a disaster if they ran into him. The voice in the memory warns that when the hero smiles gently, that's the time to be most careful. The henchman's sweaty face shows terror as he realizes the smile means the total destruction of whoever is in front of him. In disbelief at the revelation, King refuses to believe that a guy with no magic power is the living legend. Greedily, he deduces that if he defeats the intruder right here, his status will surpass that of the heroes. The MC calmly asks if his opponent is planning to throw a punch. Without hesitation, the blonde man concentrates his aura and unleashes a full-force attack, wanting to crush his opponent. The destructive blow tears through the air, kicking up a huge curtain of snow and magic. However, looking at the center of the impact, the fighter is stunned to see his target has vanished. Kang Ho reappears right beside him with a dark expression, questioning his lack of initiative. Panicked by the ghostly approach, King screams desperately, trying to land a hook on his enemy. With a fluid somersault over the attack, the hunter scoffs, asking if he didn't want to clear the gate so badly. Before the blonde man could even react, a massive beam of blue energy in the shape of claws crosses the space. The brutal attack hits the snowy ground, causing a terrifying explosion that shakes the entire region. Thrown far by the impact, the influencer completely loses his sense of space, thinking he's in a nightmare. Watching him fall, the hero confesses he doesn't like this rule of brute force, but decides to play along. With a quick push, he shoots off again toward his destabilized opponent. In a last-ditch effort to fight back, King yells and launches his attack, cursing the intruder as a useless fossil. Dodging with ease, Kang-ho firmly grabs the fighter's head, warning that those who live by strength must learn to be humble. The arrogant man's body is slammed into the icy ground, creating another devastating shockwave. Watching the massacre from the sidelines, Tio and one of the hunters agree, sweating, that the guy is going to end up done for. Relieved by his own decisions, the demon concludes that surrendering was the best choice of all and asks about the master's group. Completely destroyed and covered in bruises, the blonde man stares at the sky as the victor asks if he's awake yet. The MC approaches, pointing out that his movements have no fundamentals and questioning if he's ever trained with anyone. Finishing his lesson, the man makes it clear that pure talent doesn't make anyone superior and recommends a little more humility in life. The hero warns that much stronger people will start appearing, and if the fighter doesn't keep evolving, he'll stagnate in his own talent. Thrown to the ground, King's eyes widen as he accepts that he's spent his whole life as just a frog in a well. Turning his back to leave, the hunter recommends that the first step is to find a good master to train with. Instead of reflecting, the influencer immediately pulls out his phone and starts typing a post full of tags about his defeat. Since friendly words have no effect, the MC smashes the device directly into the defeated man's face as the dungeon gate dissolves in the background. In the following days, social media explodes with conspiracy theories and sightings of the legendary King of Beasts' return. At the same time, serious and detailed investigations begin to focus on the existence of demons and their realm of origin. Far from civilization, Tio innocently plays with the falling snow, unaware that his master is watching the situation cautiously. The hunter recalls that, a week before ending up there, he heard rumors about a demonic region undergoing aggressive changes. Understanding the gravity, he concludes that one of these anomalies connected their hell to a completely different dimension from Earth. With new monsters and this bizarre realm invading the world after 50 years, the hero admits he can't accurately measure his prisoner's current strength. Recalling the war, the man remembers that the coward's past stats were terrifying. After all, before having his mana stolen, the demon held the 4th position among the 72 Dark Lords, making him a high-level powerhouse. With a maniacal smile, the MC confesses he doesn't much like fighting, but decides to use the prisoner as a punching bag to test his own limits. Startled by the murderous intent, the former lord begins to tremble desperately as the magic cuffs on his wrists glow intensely. It all starts with the hunter snapping his fingers, revealing a spark of blue energy in his palm. A moment later, the demon feels his dark magic return to his body in an explosion of purple aura. Tio cheers excitedly that his evil power is finally coming back and tells the hero to pay close attention to his true strength. Watching the scene calmly, the MC decides he still has many questions to ask but mentally warns that if the prisoner tries anything funny, he'll just finish him right there. With a threatening glare, the former lord summons the spirits of the dead to overcome their demise and obey his command. Macabre skeletons begin to emerge from the dark energy, cracking the ground beneath them. Kang-ho calmly assesses the situation and recognizes it as the classic ability of a necromancer. Flanked by 2 skeletal hounds, the demon proudly confirms that this is his true power. He explains that he uses corpses as material to create familiars under his control, and grumbles that someone named Bale took almost everything from him. Intrigued, the hero notes that this kind of power usually only appears in fiction, as no human on Earth has ever awakened anything similar. But the group's little fox leaps with joy upon realizing her favorite food is back on the menu. Like a flash, the pet dashes toward the dark magic scattered across the area. Tio feels a sudden chill and is shocked to see the tiny creature latched onto his newly summoned monsters. Sucking the evil aura directly from the skeletons, the glutton leaves the prisoner in despair as he notices his energy being drained again. Utterly terrified, the demon questions if the human unlocked his mana channels just to set this cruel trap. Satisfied with the unexpected result, the hunter replies with a smile that he managed to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Still frightened, the prisoner realizes his empty channels are being filled with purified magic power instead of his old demonic energy. Meanwhile, the pet lands gracefully on the ground, exuding a soft, clean light from her body. A strong concentration of mana begins to gather at the back of the glowing creature. The MC watches in surprise as a new tail appears on his little travel companion. The system screen appears, confirming that the little fox has grown a second tail and activated a hidden special ability upon meeting the requirements. Reading the information calmly, the human notes that the pet's attack and defense stats had already grown the last time she ate dark magic, and praises her for the new achievement. He then remembers an old conversation with an ally about the ancient legend of the silver fox. The story told of a mythical creature with 5 immense tails and a devastating power capable of destroying everything. Looking at the cub's innocent face now, Kang-ho understands that she will continue to evolve and grow more tails until she reaches her legendary form. Sometime later, the hero walks calmly through the city streets at night while taking an important call. On the other end of the line, his friend Chialbi reports that another of their group's patrollers has gone missing in the conflict zone. The military computer panel details that the missing target was an elite hunter ranked among the top 30 in the country. His ally explains that he has already withdrawn all his forces from that dangerous area to avoid further problems with the monsters. Understanding the gravity of the situation, the MC asks what the heck is going on in this southern region to cause so many casualties. The southern region is a gigantic abandoned area, encompassing former metropolises that have become exclusive monster territory. The last security post before entering the danger zone is a military base, strictly maintained by a guild specializing in magic. At the entrance gate, a soldier scans the MC's digital license on his phone and confirms the validity of the Extreme Class Free Pass. Trembling with nervousness before the famous hero, the guard salutes, saying it's an honor to receive him while the hunter just asks to be let through. Stammering, the soldier tries to open the gate, but hesitates upon noticing the unusual companions. He hesitantly asks about the identity of the mysterious young man next to the MC, leaving Kang-ho wondering how to explain the situation. Happily eating a huge lollipop, Teo praises the wonderful candy, while the guards receive a message over the radio granting immediate passage for everyone. With a metallic clang, the gigantic wall gates open, revealing the wreckage of the old civilization. The inside of the restricted area is a true chaos of survival, taken over by ruins where colossal beasts fight for dominance of the destroyed city. Unlike the North, which was pacified by the hero in the past, the South still suffers from the continuous emergence of disaster-type beasts and endless territorial wars. A violent explosion echoes in the distance as 2 of these giant monsters clash, breaking buildings in their path. Riding on the back of his enormous white wolf, the hunter assesses the mess around him and wonders why the government hasn't exterminated these creatures once and for all. Looking at his partner who stayed behind, the human questions why he hasn't gotten on the mount yet, catching the prisoner completely off guard with the invitation. Running on foot right behind the giant wolf, the demon pants heavily and comments with a smile that this hostile and chaotic environment reminds him of his homeland. Suddenly, one of the monsters from the ruins tries to attack them with a quick lunge, but is instantly sliced apart with ease. Amused by his allies running, the MC asks if he can really enjoy these dangerous memories with his powers sealed. Sweating at the hidden threat in the question, Teo gulps and agrees that perhaps it's the perfect time to adapt to the new group. Without wasting another second, he hops onto the wolf's back, clinging to the little fox, and bids farewell to the pride of walking alone. Resuming his strategic thinking, the hero concludes that the guilds don't clear this area because the human population hasn't recovered enough to need so much residential space. Furthermore, the local energy has altered the monsters so much that their magic cores have become useless for trade, causing the region to lose all value and become completely wild. Passing a moss-covered traffic sign pointing in the old direction of the city, the former lord once again states that the place has a strong demonic feel. The hunter wipes the sweat from his face and notices the heat flowers in the trees, responsible for turning the climate into a stuffy, tropical environment. Suffering intensely from the high temperature, the gigantic white wolf pants heavily with its tongue out. Noticing the animal's rapid fatigue, Kang-ho apologizes for forgetting that his furry companions can't handle such heavy heat. Deciding to conserve the mount's energy, the group leader dismounts onto the dirt ground and announces they'll walk the rest of the way. Suddenly, a shrill pain screech echoes through the dense forest, immediately catching the team's attention. With a focused expression, the hero tries to identify the source of the noise and wonders if someone else is hunting nearby. The continuous sound of explosions indicates that a heavy confrontation is rapidly approaching them. A massive shockwave sweeps through the vegetation, breaking branches and violently pushing the air. Terrified by the destructive impact, several smaller predators emerge from the bushes, running desperately to save their own skins. Watching the flow of animals carefully, the MC notes that these beasts are fleeing in terror from something much larger. Right behind the panicking herd, a swift silhouette crosses the air, leaping through the whirlwind of dust and dry leaves. A man lands heavily in the center of a clearing, easily crushing the remaining monsters with the force of his impact. The hunter is confused by the human presence there, since his ally had assured him that all official troops had been withdrawn from the conflict zone. Wearing a simple tracksuit with a headband, the stranger lets out a long, relieved sigh after finishing the slaughter. He then turns his face seriously toward the intruders who just stumbled into his hunting ground. In the blink of an eye, the individual charges aggressively, tearing through the destroyed ground with frightening speed. The hero crosses his arms, trying to understand why this crazy guy's face looks so stupidly familiar. Focusing on the man's headband, Kang-ho finally recognizes the name and connects the identity to the intruder's face. Tapping his fingers with a smile, he confirms his discovery and wonders what his old adversary is doing in the middle of this deadly forest. The influencer stops his advance and stands firm in front of the group, radiating an intense and disciplined aura from his body. With an expression of extreme boredom, the MC just sighs, wondering if this show-off is going to try to start something again. But completely shattering all expectations, the fighter bows perfectly and lets out an extremely respectful shout of greeting. Totally caught off guard by the absurd change in posture, the hunter stammers a reply while the demon whispers about the guy's sudden strange politeness. Taking advantage of the lack of hostility, the hero explains that he's there to solve some problems and openly questions what King is up to in a place like this. Maintaining a firm stance, King announces with excitement that he's just training. The hero reflects, recalling from memory that no sane person would willingly enter a region dominated by mutant monsters. But he soon concludes that living a long time means you eventually see a bit of everything, and that the word never really doesn't exist. To better understand the situation, the MC asks what the young man has already encountered, and finds out he was planning to go even deeper into the area in search of new creatures. With that, the hunter simply agrees with the plan and questions how exactly this training is being carried out in practice. A bit awkwardly, the influencer turns his head back, trying to formulate a basic answer. In the blink of an eye, he uses his legs to launch himself forward and ferociously attacks the region's enemies. With a heavy blow to the beast, the blonde man proudly yells that he just smashes anything that gets in his way. Amidst an insane flurry of punches, the young man explains that he burns through all his magic, waits for it to recharge, and then uses it all again while focusing on creating a new ultimate attack. Annoyed by the ridiculous strategy that left the demon in the background shocked, Kang-ho sighs wearily and tells the human to calm down. He then explains that magic works like a muscle that naturally strengthens when pushed to its limit. However, the group leader warns that there's a strict ceiling for this kind of brute force effort. He also points out that efficiency is what really matters, citing the fame of an old master as a perfect example. He comments to his allies while watching the fighter that sometimes people are born with absurd talent, but grow up alone without anyone to shape that gift. Using his accumulated energy, King charges forward to demonstrate his maximum power, while the hero concludes in his thoughts that being self-taught has severe limitations, no matter how brilliant the person is. Without any difficulty, the hunter intercepts the attack and firmly grabs his opponent's wrist, who panics, thinking he's about to get beaten up all over again. Continuing the practical lesson, the MC advises that it's fine to try and perfect an ultimate attack, but in a real fight, balance is key. To illustrate the concept of failure, he warns that the moment attack power diminishes, any enemy will automatically focus on that unprotected spot. Taking advantage of the opening created by the distraction, the master lands a light tap right on the student's chest, catching him by surprise. Pushed back by the gentle impact, the influencer is told that this is the exact moment to stabilize his breathing and lure the opponent into his own lethal range. After that, all that's left is to finish the confrontation using the saved magic and breath. The teacher also reminds him that the body needs to provide solid support for magic efficiency to increase, as the fighter's current power is too strong for his own physique to handle. Completely thrilled with the perfect explanation, King accepts the orders, calling the hunter sir, and announces he will test the technique at once. Determined to apply the advice mid-battle, the young man intentionally reduces his impact force to create a deliberate bait. As the master predicted, the beast senses the momentary weakness and blindly focuses on the opening to strike. The human remains calm in the face of the furious charge and dodges with precision, waiting for the exact moment to counter. In a clean and devastating counterattack, he sinks his fist into the monster, displaying impeccable technical posture. Satisfied with the instant result, the blond man confidently notes that the battle has started to flow exactly as he planned. From a distance, Kang-ho watches the massacre and admits to himself that he doesn't actually dislike this kind of loud-mouthed, clueless person. This reckless and explosive attitude brings back old memories of when the hero himself was just an inexperienced rookie in the past. A very difficult time when he had to grow and mature on the bloody battlefield alongside his old war companion. With a massive amount of power released, the fighter sweeps the field, exploding several enemies in a single perfect blow. Wiping the sweat from his face, he confesses in shock that until now all advice seemed like just annoying complaints, but this was the first time a lesson truly hit home. With his body incredibly stable after the massacre, King fixes his gaze on the master and states with determination that he wants to learn much more. The MC just ignores the dramatic declaration, turning his head to continue his walk in silence. Desperate not to lose this golden opportunity, the young man runs after him, begging to join the group, which leaves the hunter quite confused by the sudden insistence. The strange team finally reaches the border of the old, abandoned metropolis's center. Just then, Kang-ho stops abruptly, feeling the tense atmosphere of the place, while Tio immediately recognizes the massive presence of demonic energy in the air. A gigantic dome of turbulent purple aura spins violently, blocking access and covering the entire isolated city region. The new student checks his phone with disappointment and reports that he has no idea what that is, but the area's communication signal is completely dead. Terrified by the discovery, the demon stammers, asking why that power is there. The hero quickly concludes that this dark zone is exactly where the elite mercenaries disappeared without a trace. To visually analyze the anomaly, the team leader squints and notices a terrifying detail inside the magic barrier. He points a firm finger in the direction of the macabre structure and reveals the threat's name, calling the entity Crypto, which leaves the former lord quite confused. The MC seriously explains that it's an invasive species from the underworld. This monster creates roots in the soil, turns the location into its main base, and begins to slowly expand its territory. Because of this plague's tragic history, the gray-haired companion tensely asks what happens after the entire area is taken over by the roots. Sudden gusts of wind begin to blow glowing, greenish particles through the barrier's deformed trees. The mist of magical dust travels silently through the air, spreading the infection throughout the corrupted vegetation surrounding the group. Completely overcome by fear of that power, Tio hears the warning that the creature launches spores to take control of everything it touches, and if it touches bare skin, the fate is cruel. To finish the grim warning, the hunter explains that the victim becomes a slave host, pointing out that in the Dark Realm, this cursed species was already a huge problem in the past. The master uses his own magic energy to intercept one of the floating fragments and orders everyone not to touch it, treating the green particle like a contagious plague. He carefully notes that the strange material pulsing in his palm is not just simple spores. The small light reveals itself to be a disgusting, writhing insect, which, according to the MC, serves as a larva to burrow into a living prey's skin and force a parasitic infection from the inside out. Kang-ho crushes the repulsive creature with a lethal spark of blue lightning, concluding once and for all that this Crypto is the real culprit of the tragedy, and calls his giant mount to action. Without wasting any more time on investigation, the hero flexes his legs and takes a monstrous leap, cutting through the air at high speed. Shocked by the absurd takeoff, King praises the guy's raw strength, but soon starts screaming in desperation for food while begging not to be left behind in the deadly forest. With a formidable push, the enormous white wolf crosses the hostile landscape, gracefully floating between the trees with its partner already on its back. The pair finally lands heavily in the deepest part of the dominated area, coming face to face with the main core of the enemy clan that was awaiting their visit. Formed of twisted black wood and pulsing green energy, the imposing Crypto Queen makes her presence known in the center of her own foul territory. The demonic entity had already converted all vulnerable living beings in the region into hosts, ensuring that the metropolis's center was her undisputed personal domain. Through her sharp magical senses, the monstrosity immediately detects the swift approach of a single human invader accompanied by a wild beast. Confident in the accumulated power of her troops, she reflects that unlike her hostile homeland, this peaceful world had no truly strong beings to challenge her, making human visitors very welcome. Overcome by the arrogance of certain victory, the queen immediately declares a level 1 emergency alert, ordering her army to capture the intruders alive for the conversion ritual. Mutant primates with sharp fangs emerge furiously from the shadows, answering the aggressive call of their plant master. The gigantic white wolf completely ignores the enemy numbers and charges brutally against the furious tide of hosts thirsty for fresh blood. Kang Ho assesses the situation around him and casually comments that the number of monsters there is insane, confirming that the entire area has already fallen under enemy control. From a distance, the Crypto Queen watches the initial massacre, assuming that the humans' raw strength is inferior to the demons, for now, but she recognizes their latent potential is terrifyingly enormous. The mutant plant holds a captured warrior entangled in its poisonous roots, revealing her plan to continue kidnapping strong people until she builds an invincible legion of slaves in the future. The villain exudes a murderous aura focused on the battle and warns that the insolent invader will also succumb to become her next obedient puppet. Without giving any room for long speeches, the hero just murmurs the activation command for his skills as his own body overflows with a violent blue electrical charge. In a single explosion of pure cutting energy, the entire immense front line of enemy defense is wiped from existence in a blinding flash. The shock sends a chill down the monstrosity's spine as she witnesses her battalion of corrupted primates turn to ash without the human making any visible effort. Annoyed by the absurd audacity of the armored invader, the entity deduces that this hunter is someone incredibly above average and furiously decrees that she must convert him at any cost. In response to the desperate containment orders from the main master, a much larger beastly monster roars with ferocity, blocking the green corridor with its massive body. Swift as a lightning bolt tearing through a storm, the armored MC passes straight through the giant beast, ignoring any defense attempt from the mutant creature. A piercing flash shatters the darkness of the quarantine zone as the large creatures are sliced in half by brutal energy strikes. The demonic leader panics and begins to lose her cool after registering the total destruction of her second and most formidable wall of defenders. In an unstoppable charge through the open air, the mounted hunter closes the final distance with frightening speed, his eyes focused only on ripping the problem out by the roots. Utterly terrified by her own powerlessness, the Crypto Queen sets aside her arrogance and questions in disbelief how a mere surface human managed to break through all her defenses in such a short time. Hiding in the shadows, Tio mutters in terror that this has happened once before and hopes it's not what he's thinking. The memory of that tragedy makes him reflect that his own village was dragged into this world because of a sudden dungeon transformation, where he couldn't even get close to the enemy or defeat the subordinates to save himself. The demon concludes, analyzing the macabre figure of the plant monarch, that if the one responsible is that nightmare in monster form, the situation becomes more than possible. Overcome by despair for his own fate, he grumbles, not understanding why his former superior keeps putting him in these deadly situations. With a quick sigh of relief for not being alone this time, the gray-haired man wipes the sweat from his forehead. Right behind on the same path, King continues to be a nuisance, asking to be carried on his back, only to get an immediate scolding from his companion to shut up and get moving. Far away in the center of the barrier, the Crypto Queen confidently swears that things won't end like they did in the demon realm if the invader manages to reach her. She holds a glowing magic stone near her chest and smiles maliciously, stating she has a new definitive advantage. Thanks to the mysterious artifact found in this world, she boasts of having built an even more formidable army in less than a month than she had at her peak in the underworld. Overcome by arrogance, the monarch declares a level 3 emergency alert and immediately summons her royal guard to welcome the intruder. With that, the ground of the corrupted forest begins to tremble violently as something colossal emerges, tearing through the earth. The sudden rumble startles the influencer and the former lord, who turn their heads back in terror, trying to understand what's happening in the area. Kang Ho just narrows his eyes at the new obstacle, maintaining his unshakable calm. A gigantic, mutant dinosaur-like monster rises imposingly on the battlefield, letting out a deafening roar against the group. Without a second's hesitation, the hunter uses the white wolf's back as a launching pad and leaps fiercely, cutting through the air toward the colossal beast. Facing the colossal beast, the MC grumbles that he really hates using this kind of extreme technique unless it's absolutely necessary. The gigantic creature opens its maw full of sharp teeth and charges forward with full force to devour the small human in midair. From a distance, the two apprentices are completely confused as a massive green light dominates the hidden villain's attentive vision. The mutant dinosaur stops mid-attack and raises its head in complete confusion upon noticing the deadly shadow forming right above it. A gigantic rotating energy storm crashes down from the heavens with overwhelming force, completely swallowing the beast in a lethal vortex. Landing softly on the cleared ground, the hero sighs wearily, complaining that the smell of that magic energy is simply unbearable. The brutal impact disintegrates the giant monster, raising a huge cloud of smoke and marking the instant and total destruction of the third line of defense. The tranquility of the fake forest returns as the magical dust settles silently among the broken trees. Hidden among the farthest trunks, the Crypto Queen panics upon discovering that her royal guard was annihilated in the blink of an eye and that she has completely lost the intruder's location signal. Just a few meters away, Kang-ho calmly strokes the head of his fluffy mount and says that living a long time allows one to witness oddities like a monster focused only on plants. Terror freezes the entity as she hears the human tell the wolf not to eat her because she's not food, terrified by the overwhelming presence of that gigantic, drooling beast nearby. Breaking the tension, King runs up excitedly toward the leader, announcing that the pair has finally reached the scene of the commotion. The hunter casually points a finger at the dark bush and sarcastically notes that their timing was perfect for finding the plague they were just talking about. Straining his eyes in the darkness, Tio gets a better look at the camouflaged creature's shape and notices that the monstrosity's face looks all too familiar. Consumed by fear but refusing to let go of her pride, the queen threatens not to stand idly by and accept humiliation from the terrible invader, determined not to suffer the same fate she did in the Dark Realm. Vowing not to go down without a fight, she furiously swears to drag all her enemies straight to the afterlife right at that moment. The magic core in the villain's chest begins to glow intensely, unleashing a web of destructive energy whips that tear through the scenery in all directions. The cutting winds generated by the transformation force the two apprentices to immediately cover their faces to avoid being thrown back. Watching the light show with total boredom, Kang-ho asks in a monotone voice if she can also do that same basic little trick. The plant monarch's eyes widen in complete indignation at the opponent's apathetic and relaxed reaction to her ultimate sacrifice technique. As the dust settles, the MC concludes that trying to talk to the out-of-control beast would be a waste of time, and focuses on first dealing with the explosive danger of the magic stone. Startled by the swift approach, the creature clutches her chest in desperation, realizing the fatal attack is coming before she can even fully charge the crystal's detonation power. In a charge impossible to follow, the hero reappears like a lightning flash right in front of the entity, leaving her paralyzed and questioning what kind of monster disguised as a human this is. Taking advantage of the perfect moment of shock, he lands a devastating rising kick, ripping the raw gem from the enemy's chest along with her entire arm in a single fluid motion. The queen screams in infinite agony, lamenting the ruin of her great revenge as she is mercilessly thrown through the air by the force of the blow. The sonic boom of the impact tears through the dark sky of the quarantine zone, marking the official end of the parasitic domain over that region. The residual shockwave sweeps through the abandoned streets, clearing away the greenish fog, cleansing all demonic energy, and once again revealing the city's true destroyed landscape. Ecstatic with the absurd combat scene, the influencer records everything on his phone, shouting that the fighter is absurdly insane and that this epic clip will definitely end up on his social media. Ignoring the noisy allies in the background, the hunter calmly analyzes the valuable pulsing core he has just recovered in the palm of his hand. Just then, he is surprised to see a bright system screen silently opening right above the magical artifact. The blue panel directly displays that the rock is a fragment of the eternal crystal, a rare item containing the primordial power of the essence belonging to the first dimension, Earth. Reading the information carefully, the team leader murmurs the gem's name, trying to connect the logical dots of how an artifact from his own planet ended up in the hands of an invasive parasite. The mysterious stone continues to exude a mystical and extremely powerful aura through the fingertips of its new wielder. Intrigued by the precious find, he slightly moves the object away, seeking to understand the real depth of the message displayed by the alert system. The glowing warning remains floating firmly in the air, repeatedly detailing the majestic title of the primordial fragment. Reviewing the name, the hero silently questions what it actually means to carry the fundamental essence of this planet. Seeking more information about the mystical context, he turns to Tio and directly asks if the former demon lord knows anything about the origin of this so-called eternal crystal. The demon is surprised, unable to see the human's exclusive reading panel, and curiously asks how he discovered the glowing rock's name, confessing it's the very first time he's heard the term. Racking his ancestral memory, the gray-haired man's eyes widen as he remembers that a certain extremely dangerous individual was turning the underworld upside down looking for an item with a very similar title. The MC immediately catches on and quickly deduces that the hunt was led by the very person responsible for banishing his companion from the Dark Realm. The mere mention of this individual summons the terrifying figure of the demon leader ranked number 1 in the hierarchy, widely known and feared as the Lord of Terror himself. Piecing together the investigation, Kang-ho concludes that the crystal possesses a hidden power beyond basic understanding to have attracted the attention of such a colossal threat. To test the theory in practice, the hunter holds the object firmly as a pure, ethereal aura begins to gently envelop him. He injects his own amount of mana directly into the rocky core to instantly feel the physical response of the dormant artifact. An overwhelming sensation of vital regeneration invades the hero's body, making it very clear that this power is incredibly sweet but far too dangerous to fall into the hands of someone without control. Analyzing the massive flow of restorative energy in his hand, he notes that any living being without the right qualifications would be completely devoured by the force contained within the stone. Following this line of reasoning, he seriously deduces that powerful creatures from other dimensions who can absorb similar fragments could end up using this monstrous force to invade Earth in the future. With this alarming discovery in mind, the leader cuts the discussion short, telling the team to start heading back home while he carefully stores the object safely. In that same second, King's attitude completely changes, and he accepts the order with a submissive salute, calling him chief, which greatly unsettles the veteran. The young man bows firmly, excitedly stating that his greatest dream in life has always been to serve someone who wields overwhelming and unbeatable strength. With no interest whatsoever in the forced proposal, the MC responds drily, cutting the mood by saying that dream is clearly not his. The influencer doesn't give up easily on the rejection and starts offering his own domestic services, swearing he can cook very well and promising to do anything he's told in exchange for teachings. Dismissing the persistent fan without ceremony, Kang-ho advises the kid to find a master somewhere else, only to hear a desperate response that the rookie has been stuck at the same level for over a year and desperately needs help to evolve. Recalling the tough invisible barriers of magical growth, the blonde man begs for a real chance to learn how to overcome his own limits and climb the guild ranks, since he can't break through the stagnation alone and has no one else willing to teach him. Taking advantage of the dramatic situation, Tio whispers near the leader's ear, suggesting they give the young man a small vote of confidence, using the offered culinary talent as the perfect excuse for the team to finally stop eating that slop on the road. The demon argues quietly that the kid has already reached the level of an SS class awakened, which practically means it's almost impossible to find a qualified teacher capable of training him in the current world without having started the process in childhood. The hero sighs deeply, unwillingly accepting the annoying fate of carrying another noisy dead weight in the team, and decides to immediately test the aspiring disciple's true determination. Full of energy and instant military discipline, King shouts at the top of his lungs, confirming he accepts the challenge blindly, whatever the task may be. With a sadistic and calculated tone in his voice to establish order in the training, the master orders the student to run all the way to the distant city of Chiorwan without using a single drop of magic during the entire physical journey. Shock takes over the excited young man's face, and he begins to stammer desperately, remembering that they are still on the other side of the country in Daegu, and that this punishing journey on foot would be sheer madness beyond human capability. It all starts with Tio recalling that about 50 years ago, it took him around 3 days to complete that same journey. At that, Kang-ho advises his companion not to forget to prepare food along the way since he's seeking training. Using a swift magical impulse, the demon leaps into the air, calling out for his chief. Far away in the middle of the wasteland, King continues to run, exhausted, and questions if he's really doing this crazy thing. Night falls over the enormous glass headquarters of the Mercenary Guild. In the main office, President Junseok is on the phone, ordering the families of the fallen hunters to be contacted with the utmost respect to begin funeral preparations. He hangs up, looking at the profiles of the deceased on his tablet, and reflects on the demon realm being a newly emerged different world on the continent, curious about how many more dimensions exist out there. Taking a heavy drag from his cigar, the veteran laments that nowadays it honestly seems impossible to predict even one step ahead. Sitting nearby, a young subordinate sips his whiskey and thanks him for taking care of that annoying request, warning that the favor will be deducted from the price of the previous magic stone. Junseok retorts that no matter how many times they go through this situation of loss, no one ever gets used to people dropping like flies all the time. Holding his own phone, the young man opines that this is exactly the kind of thing a person shouldn't get used to. To him, perhaps it's precisely because they have a leader who grieves so much for his own warriors that the mercenary guild continues to thrive so well. Already annoyed by the sentimental mood, the president grumbles that crying with a face like his is not a pretty sight, and tells the kid to stop trying to make him shed tears. Suddenly, a device on the table lights up on its own, noticing the glow. The young man sees it's a brand new, recently activated model, and asks the reason for the sudden purchase. The chief explains that someone has been whining non-stop for one of those phones, remembering the image of a small, impatient acquaintance who is always demanding technology. Seeing the young man get up to leave, Junseok asks if he won't have at least one for the road, but the assistant refuses the offer, stating that today's not possible, as someone is eagerly waiting on the other end of that line. The assistant's gaze shifts to a picture frame resting on the corner of the desk. Picking up the object, which showed an old group of warriors, he questions the president about why he took that photo out of the drawer again. In a tired tone, the veteran supposes it's the weight of age catching up, as lately everything he does seems to end in regret, including the choices they made in the past. Analyzing the image, the young man silently recalls that these were the men even before they were known worldwide as the Five Heroes. However, he notes that there weren't just 5 people in the original photo. There was a man who never made it into the history books or the internet simply because he couldn't. Cutting through the nostalgic mood, the young man says the name of that old, erased companion out loud, Kang Junseok. A heavy silence fills the room as the young man's face shows deep seriousness. Closing his eyes sadly, the president agrees and confirms that this man's fate is definitely one of his greatest regrets in life. The subordinate maintains a stern expression as dark memories of another world begin to invade his mind. In his thoughts, a colossal storm cloud appears, shaking the entire demon realm where his strongest magical family members were fighting. Back in the present in a dark room, Tio wakes up from a nightmare in a cold sweat, remembering his subordinates were annihilated without a trace. The traumatic memory transports him back to the vision of his own fortress crumbling in flames under a merciless enemy attack. Standing in the middle of the destruction, the demon recalls that the only thing he could do was watch, feeling utterly powerless before that overwhelming force. With his eyes wide with pure terror, he burns the name of the monster responsible for that absolute massacre into his memory. The demonic figure of Baal rises imposingly amidst the fire and total destruction, reigning over the ruins of the former lord. The macabre image focuses on the enemy's hand, making Tio absolutely certain that the villain was holding a black magic stone during the attack. In the middle of the nightmare, the defeated former lord screams in desperation, questioning why this is happening, as he always made it clear he just wanted to live a peaceful life. In response to his despair, the monster just flashes a sadistic and cruel smile in the darkness. Mercilessly, the invader launches his dark energy tentacles directly into Tio's body, tearing his opponent apart without any warning. The former ruler screams in agony as he feels almost all his demonic energy being violently drained from his core. Absorbing the stolen strength, Baal decrees that he will ascend to a higher world and will gladly use the defeated's body as mere fertilizer to pave this path of power. Terrified of his own end, the demon lets out a final panic scream, denying that tragic fate. Back in reality, in the middle of the night, the small wolf licks Kangho's face in bed, complaining in its thoughts that even the little bit of magic left is being sucked out by this tasteless human body. The hero gently pushes the animal away and playfully scolds it, saying licking is forbidden when there's no magic coming out, while the former lord reflects in relief that living with this chief is literally paradise compared to the days with Baal. Just then, a small toy bone falls softly onto the bedroom floor, catching their attention. Holding his mug, the MC curiously asks what that fallen object is. The little wolf approaches the item sadly and reveals that it's the bone of his most precious familiar of all time. Noticing the pet's deep look of longing, the hunter quickly deduces that there's a long, tragic story behind that relic. In a dramatic tone, Teo recounts that this loyal familiar was none other than his own father in the distant past. Shocked by the bizarre revelation, Kang-ho spits out his drink and indignantly wonders what kind of sick person turns their own father into a magical servant. Trying to justify the absurd situation, the demon argues that perhaps this is just his race's normal way of showing genuine family affection. The scene cuts to the serenity of the magic orchard, where a sweet voice cheerfully calls for the absolute being. The queen of the fairies flies through the air, spreading glitter, and happily announces that the place continues to overflow with abundance and perfect peace. With a wide smile, she praises the bees the leader brought on his last visit, stating they are excellent workers and have proven that the title of worker is no joke. Walking relaxed through the garden, Kang-ho casually agrees as the fairy excitedly points to the flowering field. Assuming his humanoid form, Teo puffs out his chest with pride and boasts that his little creations are truly dedicated angels. Excited by the praise, the former lord quickly jumps to show off his skills in the orchard. However, the hunter instantly cuts him short, intercepting his movement and using his ability to rapidly drain his partner's magic energy. The shock of the power loss immediately transforms the warrior back into his small, harmless form. Running in a panic through the field, the pet cries that he's completely empty and has nothing left to be sucked out, making the fairy laugh awkwardly, noting that not everyone there is feeling so peaceful. Ignoring the dog's drama, the hero puts his hand in his jacket pocket, praising everyone's good work during his absence. Using a bit of magic, he flicks a small reward toward the queen with his thumb. The entity surprisingly catches the large, filled pastry, recognizing with delight that they are the same delicious treats he had made in the past, as she receives the order to share the rest with her people. Utterly delighted with the gift and swaying with happiness, she asks with shining eyes if the leader would really do all that for them. Noticing the over-the-top excitement, Kang-ho raises a finger and forbids any kind of thank you dance, cutting the fairy's party short right then and there. Resigned to the rule, the queen humbly accepts the food and takes a large bite of the soft pastry. Chewing the food with gusto, she tries to warn the absolute being about the recipe's magical intensity. Suddenly, a massive energy explodes from the fairy's body, causing her to float as she screams that this continuous power is still too strong for their species to handle. With her legs trembling, the small creature lands on the ground, unable to balance properly on the grass. Sweating from the magical overload, she pants heavily, confessing that her body won't be able to eat any more than that. Analyzing the scene calmly, the MC notes that the food's effect was indeed excellent, as all the fairies in the orchard had an instant growth spurt after the meal. Right behind, the former lord runs past in his human form again, screaming that he's going to go crazy with this chaotic, draining routine. During his escape, he stops, confused, upon hearing the sound of someone's heavy breathing approaching the sacred place. The hunter and the queen turn at the same time to see who managed to invade the peaceful territory so loudly. With a slight smile, the leader ironically notes that his stubborn student took exactly 2 days to arrive. Dragging his feet from pure exhaustion, King appears on the horizon, sweating buckets and tearfully calling for his chief. Holding his own canine pet on his shoulder, Teo praises the kid's absurd determination, acknowledging that he truly doesn't know the meaning of the word quit. With tears in his eyes, the influencer boasts that he crossed the entire country on foot without using a single drop of magic, following the master's impossible order to the letter. Overcome by the emotion of his great achievement, the young man takes a confident leap through the air toward his idol with open arms. But extreme exhaustion takes its toll, and he faceplants directly onto the grass, tumbling to the ground and falling into a deep sleep instantly, without even finishing his sentence. It all starts with the entire team watching the newcomer passed out on the ground, confirming he's out cold. The blonde kid starts snoring loudly right away, leaving the question of who exactly this unusual figure is hanging in the air. Enjoying the warmth of the fire, the kid continues to snore away while Kang-ho decides that for now, they can just call him the disciple and see how it goes. Later that cold night, the leader sits alone on the roof of the snow-covered cabin to think. Sipping his drink calmly and scrolling through his phone, he reflects that since they'll be living together for a while, the least he can do is try to find out who the kid really is. The device's screen displays an announcement for an official ranking match between the S-Class hunter known as Pyro and King himself, who holds the title of SS-Class. Analyzing his student's opponent, the MC racks his brain and remembers that this Pyro belongs to the famous Rabadan Guild. This organization is widely known as one of the country's 4 great guilds, with a long tradition of training awakened focused exclusively on high-level magic. The current master of this closed-off group is Kang Taeyong, a powerful wind magic user who also holds the association's highest rank. Seeking to better understand the chaotic scenario, the leader calls one of his acquaintances directly, asking for precise information about this rivalry. The huntress answers the phone, completely surprised by the sudden contact, and sarcastically comments on the honor of receiving a call from the great king of beasts in person. Without wasting time on formalities, the hero gets straight to the point and questions if the rumors about the deep animosity between the Rabadan Guild, Pyro, and the newcomer are true. The informant immediately confirms that their relationship is terrible, revealing that the kid was part of that organization until about 16 years ago and has a very complicated history with the main family there. Listening intently to the gossip, the MC lets out a thoughtful murmur under the starry sky, trying to piece together this puzzle from the past. The next morning finally arrives, and King wakes up, stretching his body with a groan, celebrating being alive and refreshed after his first decent sleep in 2 whole days of pure ordeal. Confused by the cold environment around him, the newcomer blinks, trying to get his bearings. He soon realizes the reason for the morning chill on his back. He spent the whole night lying next to the little pet, who is snoring away in the sleeping bag beside him. Just then, the kid notices the leader still sitting high up on the roof, and comments with relief that he thought he had been left behind in the middle of nowhere while he was passed out. Ignoring the good morning banter, Kang Ho cuts to the chase, directly asking if the disciple really scheduled a life-or-death fight against this pyro. The young man confirms the information, a bit nervously, explaining that the people there were insisting too much for this official match to happen soon. Analyzing the danger of the situation, the hero deduces that things must be ugly between his student and the guild, asking if he caused some serious trouble there, which earns a desperate denial from the boy in his own defense. Looking down with deep sadness, King sincerely assures him that he and his mother never did anything wrong to that powerful family. The MC listens to the outburst in dead silence, recalling the previous night's conversation about how recruiting the kid would be interpreted as an immediate declaration of war against the Great Guild. His acquaintance had told him that for this exact political reason, no team in the country would take the kid until he managed to hit SS class completely on his own. The major problem behind this isolation involves the fact that many believe the young man is the illegitimate son of the powerful master Kang Taeyong. Since the veteran's personal life has always been a huge mess, and his direct family dominates the top seats in the hierarchy, people simply connect the dots and avoid getting involved in the fight out of pure fear. Satisfied with the confirmation of the story, the leader ends the interrogation, saying he's heard enough to make a decision. He mentions that he checked the tournament date and saw it's only a month away, making it very clear they have no time to spare and the preparation needs to be brutal from now on. Calmly finishing his glass of water, the hunter says they can talk about feelings and family betrayals later, because today, the kid's mana hole will be sealed to begin physical training without magic. Accepting the challenge instantly without hesitation, the influencer gives a perfect salute and bellows at the top of his lungs that he is prepared to face any punishment. With little patience for dilly-dallying, the hunter holds a pair of dark metal rings in his hand, while the student tries to understand what's about to happen. Ignoring any warning, King confidently takes off running, bragging that if the basic training is just a marathon in the snow, he'll breeze through it with his eyes closed, but then he feels the world stop. His legs abruptly lock to the ground, feeling like a ton, making the kid flail his arms in a panic, not understanding what went wrong with his own body. Looking down in complete terror, he notices the glowing blue weights firmly locked to his ankles and cries out, asking what the heck the chief strapped to him. The master calmly explains that it's an item forged from a special mineral, while the newcomer nearly freaks out upon discovering that each leg is carrying about an extra 300 kilograms. With pure satisfaction in his eyes, the MC philosophizes that when a human has a clear goal in mind, just one day is enough to generate absurd growth, and that from now on the running will be done with this equipment. The color drains from the kid's face, and he breaks into a cold sweat when he hears the grim warning that people can only draw out their true hidden strength when they face a fatal crisis head-on. Right behind him, the former lord suddenly shifts into his monstrous giant demon wolf form, drooling fiercely as the young man tries to break the tension by saying the pet woke up very energetic today. Overcome by a practical sadism, the hunter gives the beast a direct order to devour the student in a single bite if his legs stop moving for even a millisecond. Kicking into absolute survival mode, the influencer screams with all his might, tearing through the blizzard in a frantic race, mercilessly hunted by the monster hot on his heels. Watching the chaotic spectacle from a distance, The hero acknowledges that jumping straight into a max speed run with all that extra weight is far too clumsy, but it proves the absurd endurance that comes with the SS class. Satisfied with the path they've chosen, he reflects that once the disciple learns the basics, the old leader of Rabadan and all the elite hunters will lose their minds over the result of this madness. Time moves on mercilessly, marking a full week of continuous suffering in the mountains, until the kid reappears panting and begging for mercy. To make the marathon harder, the young man now wears a dark tactical training vest that adds an oppressive load directly on his chest, almost preventing normal breathing. Next, thick containment bracelets are mercilessly locked onto both of the poor guy's arms, cutting off any chance of using his upper body for momentum. With his feet tearing through the frozen earth and sinking deep with every step, the newcomer almost cries in despair, trying to calculate the insane math of the weight he's dragging through the mountainous terrain. The leader tells the crybaby to stop complaining and just focus on moving uphill, while taking the opportunity to call out his pet fox's name. Hearing the absolute being's voice, the little creature perks up her pointy ears, completely alert and excited to join the fun too. In a blinding flash, the pet shoots off, cutting through the icy wind at a speed completely impossible to follow with the naked eye. Watching the race from afar, the hunter realizes that his new teammate has been visibly grumpy for the past few days due to a lack of real action. Since she barely had a chance to fight the parasite queen in the last major confrontation, her repressed urge to cause destruction dangerously strengthened her predatory instincts. With no one to take out her pent-up fury on in the cabin, the fox started ambushing the poor demon dog all day long, which forced the chief to put her in the training session to burn off that stress. Assuming her true colossal form with giant tails, the mystical beast charges furiously alongside the demon wolf, putting even more terror into the kid, who realizes he's trapped with the same infernal weights from before. Sitting calmly on a rock and scrolling through his phone, the hero authorizes both beasts to take a good bite and draw blood if the boy decides to slack off and slow down. Scrolling through the guild notifications on his device, he comes across an annoyed message from his huntress friend, complaining that the untouchable Kang Taeyong is being a nuisance again by making statements about the veterans. The sensationalist headline shoves a photo of the guild master in his face, stating in no uncertain terms that the 5 classic heroes are nothing but overestimated relics of a dead era who just got plain lucky to be born at the right time. Reading such disrespect and arrogance, the MC grumbles to himself that the guy is still the same idiot as always and would do the world a favor by spending that time cleaning up his own guild's trash. The long and merciless ordeal continues as the hours pass. The night covers the forest in deep darkness, and the sound of dragging footsteps breaks the silence near the wooden door. The main entrance bursts open with a bang, revealing the disciple, destroyed by extreme exhaustion, panting and about to collapse, peacefully followed by the small fox who has returned to her normal size. Dropping to his knees with not a drop of strength left on the warm cabin floor, the young man cries with his face to the ground, thanking the heavens for surviving another full day of this deadly torture without losing his life. Right behind the exhausted human, the former demon lord faceplants onto the wooden floor, completely drained, proving that maintaining his giant hunting form for so many hours took a heavy toll. Handing over the well-deserved reward, the leader sits comfortably and offers a shot of expensive liquor to the fallen kid, praising his relentless determination for lasting much longer on the track than expected. Lying on the rug like an old doormat, the student mutters that this stupid stubbornness is the only thing he has left and that without it, he'd be nothing but dead weight, receiving a moral pat from the master telling him to go rest. The influencer turns his sweaty neck, noticing the empty space beside him, and questions where his canine drinking buddy, who usually drinks with them every night, is. Taking a swig straight from the bottle with ease, the hero explains that the pet ran off to hide in the tool shed just to avoid hearing that unbearable snoring again, and extends his hand, offering a clean glass. Gladly accepting the invitation to relax his battered muscles, the young man gently clinks glasses with the chief's water, enjoying the rare break in the crushing routine. The young man sips the alcohol slowly, while confessing with a somewhat distant look that everyone on social media and in the guilds must be talking trash about him behind his back now. In the painful depths of the prodigy hunter's memory, the vivid image of a mansion consumed by monstrous flames resurfaces strongly the moment he mentions the terrible gossip about his family's past. Leaning his elbows on his legs with the glass firm in his hand, he confides that he's taken enough hits in life to learn on his own that big rumors are always half blatant lies and half the purest, most painful truth. The master absorbs the confession without a single moral judgment, sipping his drink in peace so as not to interrupt the courage the newcomer has gathered to truly open his heart. The scene flashes back in time to the imposing image of the gigantic, traditional Rabadan headquarters, nestled in the center of Deepening, a fortress that has concentrated all the political and magical power of the southern region since the end of the Great Monster War. In one of the tiny, forgotten rooms of that colossal structure that houses the nobility, a little boy of just 8 years old opens his innocent eyes, startled by the cold dark of the early morning. The small, unwanted resident, originally named Park Sung-jun before taking on a mantle of resentment in the future, sits alone on the bed of that dusty, cramped room in the forgotten back of the millionaire mansion. Still half asleep and rubbing his sad eyes, the child calls for his mother with a failing voice, seeking a little comfort in that invisible emotional prison. Far from the boy in the basement of the main house, his mother is already working hard, chopping dozens of vegetables under the faint light before sunrise, forced to silently perform all the humiliating tasks thrown at her day after day. Despite living in that miserable situation, little Park Sung-jun waves cheerfully upon seeing his mother. The woman returns the affection instantly, proving that the love between them was the only thing keeping them going. The routine suddenly changes when the boy is tasked with sweeping the exclusive training courtyard of the Rabadan main family. Holding a broom taller than himself, the boy observes the environment, completely confused. He watches the legitimate children sweating it out during training, unable to control their own magic at all. Not understanding their difficulty, the boy forms a small sphere of air in the palm of his hand with the greatest of ease. He mentally questions why those nobles can't do something so absurdly simple. Just then, Master Kang Taeyong appears silently right behind the boy, noticing that the bastard has awakened the exact same wind affinity as his own, all by himself. Startled by the imposing presence, the child turns his head, losing his concentration on the magic. He immediately recognizes the supreme leader of the guild standing right in front of him. But the peace is shattered when Kang Taeyong catches the scene and shouts indignantly that a nobody like him has no right to use the wind element. Consumed by jealousy, the future hunter known as Pyro feels his blood boil with rage. Along with the other 5 legitimate children, he glares at the boy with a look full of hatred, leaving the little one completely lost in the situation. The innocent Park Sung-jun had no idea that the guild leader himself had set up this little show just to provoke his spoiled children. It was from that day on that the abuse began, with the heirs mercilessly beating the boy in the back of the property. Being stomped into the dirt, the boy endured the pain in silence because he had a very clear goal in mind. The only thing that mattered was becoming a powerful hunter to get his mother out of that miserable life, so he would endure any humiliation. However, a line is crossed the day a bowl of food is deliberately thrown on the ground. The other servants in the mansion panic, not knowing how to react to the gratuitous cruelty. The heir forces the boy's mother to eat the dirty rice off the floor, making the woman cry and apologize while her son watches, paralyzed. Seeing that scoundrel's hand forcing his mother's head to the ground, the boy's mind goes blank. Consumed by absolute fury, he grinds his teeth, feeling the power overflow. Unleashing a violent gust of wind, the boy charges forward, telling that trash to get his hands off her. The aggressor is terrified by the sudden approach. Unable to defend himself, the noble is brutally thrown to the ground by the force of the magical impact. He goes rolling in the dust, coughing heavily after the unexpected blow. Rising, surrounded by flames, the heir declares they will settle this right now, refusing to accept that the bastard uses the same power as the patriarch. Screaming with all the hatred in the world, he shoots toward the boy, using his maximum fire to burn his rival. Desperate at the impending tragedy, the mother tries to get in the middle of the fight, begging the young master to stop, while her son prepares his wind for the clash. The term bastard hits the woman hard, and she watches the fire attack reflected directly in her dilated pupil. Throwing her own body in front of the fatal blow to protect her son, the woman is consumed by the merciless flames as the boy understands that he should have been the target of that hatred. The shock completely paralyzes the boy, forever etching the image of that infernal flash in his mind. Burning alive in front of her son, the mother gives one last gentle look, apologizing for everything, sealing the tragedy that marked Rabadan 16 years ago. Kicked out of the only home he had ever known, the young man wandered the dark city streets while his mother's death was swept under the rug. Returning to the present inside the cabin, King shows his melancholy, acknowledging that even though it wasn't his fault, his mother did an amazing job raising him to the end. Pouring another glass of water, The student recounts that the guild pulled strings so no one would accept him, forcing him to live off scraps in conflict zones to hunt and train alone. He tries to break the heavy mood with a bit of irony, commenting that they stopped treating him like trash as soon as he clawed his way to SS class. The leader listens to it all in silence, as the kid admits that no one in the world would believe this crazy story. Placing his glass firmly on the table, the MC cuts through the newcomer's insecurity, stating that he believes every word, as that guild patriarch is perfectly capable of such cruelty. Turning his back to go to sleep, the master tells the student to rest in peace, assuring him that no one in this place will hate him or kick him out. The click of the closing door leaves the influencer alone in the room, remembering how he used to hate the silence and darkness of his time of abandonment. In those lonely days, the boy used to turn on the television to any random video and just stare at the screen for hours on end. The images showed a hero in a yellow suit who would beat up countless enemies at once. What fascinated the child most was seeing that this idol showed radiant joy and confidence precisely when the situation got most dangerous. Inspired by that light in the darkness, the sad boy began to copy the optimistic attitude, raising his thumb to the screen in the gesture that would end up defining his entire identity in the future. The piece is short-lived, and the nightmare returns with full force, bringing back the suffocating heat of the flames and the agonizing screams of the past. The boy wakes up with a jolt, sweating and screaming in despair into the empty room. Panting, with his heart about to burst, he tries to catch his breath when his phone vibrates on the bed. The screen's glow announces that there are only 3 days left until the decisive showdown at the big city gym. The pressure of revenge tightens his chest, but the image of his master showing confidence in the face of danger invades his thoughts to give him strength. Wiping the sweat from his face with the back of his hand, the newcomer forces his facial muscles into an expression of courage. He mutters to himself that it's okay and throws open the cabin door to face the cutting morning cold. Tearing through the snow in an intense run, the influencer yells at the top of his lungs that a real star has fun when things get tough. During a hand-to-hand combat session, the hunter praises the disciple's fluid movement as he easily dodges the blows, while the young man notes with indignation that the master is just walking around the field. The MC creates some distance and reminds him that the official ranking tournament is literally knocking on the door. With a sterner tone, he warns that precisely because of this short deadline, they need to do a different kind of training now. Suddenly appearing in the kid's blind spot, the hero bluntly states that he's terrified of that opponent and has nightmares every night because of it, leaving the boy in shock at the accuracy of his reading. The hunter coldly explains that trauma works exactly like a monster hiding in a cave, waiting for the worst possible moment to devour its victim from the inside out. Landing a surgical leg sweep that unbalances the student, the leader warns that the hesitation generated by fear drastically reduces the chances of victory in a real fight, demanding that this block be broken today. Tumbling backward, King's eyes widen, not understanding a thing, and he asks how they're going to solve such a deep psychological problem. With an insane blue aura covering his hands, the master cracks his knuckles and declares that the therapeutic method is quite simple. The patient just has to actually die at least once. The kid falls into absolute despair seeing his chief's killing intent, tearfully asking if this madness has any chance of working. The hero shoots off at top speed through the snow, assuring him with total calm that the result is proven because he tested it on himself in the past. Terrified by the charge, the student screams, questioning if the great absolute leader ever really had any trauma in his life. The hunter hits his opponent head-on with an overwhelming punch that kicks up a curtain of snow, just telling the kid to clench his jaw so he doesn't lose all his teeth at once. Long after the massacre, the MC pokes the fainted disciple's cheek with a stick, wondering if maybe he overdid it with the treatment. Leaning calmly on an ice rock, the former lord assures him that the kid is made of steel and will wake up good as new, pointing out that his heavy snoring is the biggest proof of his health. The mysterious entity adopts a provocative tone right after, changing the subject to ask if the hunter has finally noticed what's been happening behind the scenes. It turns out that in the last few days, the leader has stopped draining his partner's magic so frequently, giving the demon space to train his own powers in secret. During his nightly observations, what really caught the hero's attention was the alien method the being used to strengthen his magic core. The technique involved brutally refining the energy over and over until only the purest demonic essence in the universe remained, creating a truly enticing feast. The MC patiently explains that it's precisely because he's carrying such a delicious dish inside his own body that the little fox hunts the former lord every single day. At that, Kang Ho ignores his lackey's panic at the invisible threat and asks if he would consider teaching this magic to someone else in the future, but the pet deflects, pointing out that the chief has also been disappearing in the early mornings. Without denying the secret investigation, the leader recalls his recent trip to the big city and tries to jog his companion's memory about the place. The hero then shatters the light mood for good and asks if the entity managed to smell the same stench of demonic energy that plagued the streets of that human region. The entity resumes the conversation about the big city, saying he didn't sense anything special during his nightly rounds in Deepening, which makes the MC connect the fact to Miha's report. It turns out that the number of deaths in the Rabadan Guild hit an abnormal record over the last entire year. To get to the bottom of this, the former lord visited the region several times during his secret investigation, but no anomalies stood out. Cutting through the silence, the pet states that only one specific thing really bothered him. Kang Taeyong's sudden isolation for training was very suspicious given his controlling personality, especially since the spike in deaths began at that exact time. Without hesitation, the creature guarantees that there's definitely something very strange going on centered around Rabadan, while the leader just watches his student passed out in the snow. Lying on the cold ground, the kid suffers in silence, trapped in his own subconscious. The illusory scenery quickly changes to a sea of flames, and King instantly recognizes the feeling of the same old nightmare. The agonizing scene of his mother's death once again hammers into his mind without rest. Overcome by frustration, the young man blames his half-brother and questions himself if he's still frightened by that piece of trash. Just then, a violent shock distorts the space, tearing the flames in half. The kid blinks, disoriented, not understanding the bizarre event in his dream at all. Shattering the illusion with brute force, the master lands a direct punch that yanks the kid back to reality. Excited by the method's success, the hero tells the newcomer to get back up and finish his beating, proving that the hellish training is 1,000 times scarier than any old trauma. The influencer wakes up with a start, shouting indignantly and complaining about the cheap shot he just took. The fun begins with the entity poking the boy lying in the snow, while the MC calmly notes that the kid has finally woken up. Without wasting a moment, the former lord cracks his knuckles and announces that the second round of training is about to begin. Facing the master's overwhelming aura, the kid feels true terror strike, absolutely certain he's going to die there. Panic hits its limit, and the kid runs off screaming for help as a brutal sequence of ice magic explodes around him, aiming for his destruction. It was with this extreme delicacy that the trauma-overcoming therapy really kicked into gear, earning the student a total of 15 knockouts in a single day. The heavy routine continued without a break during the sessions, forcing the disciple to dodge increasingly faster charges. Despite the constant beatings, the young man's posture began to shed its fear, gaining an unshakable determination in the face of imminent danger. The 3-day deadline finally runs out, bringing the long-awaited morning of the great ranking match at the gigantic Deepening gym. In the packed stands, the crowd discusses, not understanding why a double S ranker like King would agree to fight an A-class opponent. The gossip spreads like wildfire among the spectators, quickly circulating the rumor that the whole beef exists because the influencer is supposedly the bastard son of the Rabadan leader. Cutting through the crowd's chatter, delirium takes over the stadium when the first competitor begins to walk through the arena's dark tunnel. The event's jumbotrons focus on the fighter's absurdly heavy equipment, displaying dozens of glowing magical artifacts on his body and an elite sword. Raising the blade with pure arrogance, the guild's youngest son, Kang Taeyong, makes his presence known in the center of the illuminated stage. Calling his own audience pathetic insects, the heir couldn't care less about the comments about him using overpowered items from the last great raid. In the corner of the arena, Kang Tae-hoon assures that his brother will win easily, but the pyromaniac retorts, consumed by rage, focused only on the worry that the bastard will run from the fight at the last minute. Observing his youngest brother's manic state, the fourth son mentally questions if the destruction of their family was really what their patriarch wanted. The pyromaniac finally loses his patience and starts screaming in the middle of the gym, calling his rival trash and stating with conviction that the coward chickened out. A calm voice responds directly, confirming the taunt, accompanied by the dry sound of boots landing heavily on the arena floor. Entering the combat area, panting, along with his technical support team, King fires back at the insults, saying he was only late because he decided to run to the venue on foot. Full of confidence, he flashes a grin, taunting his opponent by telling him the truth: the star of the show always saves the best entrance for last.